Hello, hello, hello.
Yo,
Welcome
back at it
to
again.
Uncomfy Truths, episode 10. It's your man, conspiracy brother here with conservative brother. We have been busy this time of year. It seems like this time of year is just with the holidays, I don't know, the weather.
Mhm.
Seems like this time of year is always difficult for me, and so I'm glad to be back to share new information. A lot of stuff has gone on since our last show. It's been almost a month, I think, maybe even a month and a half.
Yeah, me too. Took a
So
while for our schedules to align, but we made it. We wanted to close out at least one more show to close out 2022. Obviously, a lot's gone down, this December of 2022 for the history books. But yeah, real excited to kind of go over some articles, give our perspective, debunk it, give our uncomfortable truth. And that's what we're here for, man. We're back at it. It's episode 11 or 12 or 10. I don't remember. I think it was episode
it's 10. It's 10.
10.
So I do. I
Right.
mean, I'm grateful that I do keep track of episode numbers. So yeah, it's 10. But I mean, 10 is a milestone. It's a round number.
Big 10,
Uh,
baby.
yeah, one day it'll be a zero behind that 10. One day it'll be a zero behind that zero. So
That's the goal,
the
man. Consistency.
expectation is that, yeah, the expectation is with consistency. We can do this more frequently and with better production, and who knows what the future can hold for Uncomfy Truths.
Yes, sir. All right. So, what's our first article? We could pull it up. Um, I may need to read part of it for context, or we can just read the headline and kind of dive into it. But yeah, definitely a lot to talk about. Conspiracy, brother.
Indeed. So I don't know where you want to start, or because there's so much in the news. Uh, there are so many things to talk about. So I'll let you take point for this, and I just kind of wherever you I got the articles ready, so wherever you have us going. I guess if you want to just do an overview, or if you want me to do the overview of where we want to try to hit today.
Yeah. I'd
Uh,
say I'll give a quick overview, and then basically whichever article um whichever article you have pulled up first, you can kind of just pull that up in order. But I definitely want to hit on obviously the same Sam Bankman-Fried FTX scandal. Obviously, that's been a big hot topic. We recently also had obviously Elon Musk dropping the Twitter files each Friday. We want to focus on a specific sector of, I guess, what they call their online psyop. Kind of part of the censorship ish. Um, yeah, and then also we have a couple updates. God, I feel like there's so much, but yeah, let's just kind of start there. 'Cause I know that's been kind of a big thing right now. Yeah, just start with the first article, just so I can see it on the screen, and then we can kind of just kind of, wing it as we go, with each article. Yeah.
let's see. We'll go with this one. Country music star John Rich launches patriotic bank with Ben Carson and Larry Elder. Will never cancel law-abiding customers. That's from the
Oh, wait,
Daily
conspiracy
Wire.
brother, can you? It's not sharing yet. I think you got to click it.
Oh, yeah.
I can't see it.
I gotta share the screen. Thank you for reminding me. Let's see. Uh,
Yeah, but while conspiracy brothers bringing that up, obviously this FTX Sam Bankman-Fried scandal obviously threw a lot of people on their head, and I like to kind of at least give maybe a big picture, kind of macro aspect of it, and then both me and conspiracy brothers definitely really good at getting into kind of the details, the nitty gritty, as well as big picture as well. I'm more of a big picture guy. But obviously, crypto for whatever, last 10 years, 10 to 15 years been praised as the great decentralization. Park your money here. It's safe from the government. And this whole scandal, we're going to obviously break down the details. That gave the government all they need to decide to go in and give official regulation, have the banks come in. You see the banks barely have any tellers. They're automating stuff. They're pretty much positioning themselves to get into the crypto game. And I think a big part of that, unfortunately, is this Sam Bankman-Fried guy, who, once again, his parents have some very shady, mysterious ties with both the high finance world as well as the banking and political elite. There's just been so many ties to other billionaires that we need to talk about as far as gotten killed within the last matter of weeks. One for speaking up, other two we may never know. So I just think it's very important to keep a big picture on stuff and where to connect the dots, because I think the problem lies where people would just get so wrapped up in this side or the other, and they just think, oh, that's just so weird, that's just a coincidence, and you really kind of blinds you from really being manipulated to fit whatever narrative the left or the right feels, because you can't see past the big picture, unfortunately. I saw the article was up and then it went away.
It's,
But yeah, I just wanted to, yeah.
for some reason, this screen sharing is it's not. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I don't know why it was giving me such a hard time. There we go.
Oh,
There we go.
all right. All right, we're gonna start with this one.
We can. The other one was a Washington Post article. I have to do some things to get it to pull up.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that right now if you want.
No,
But
we could
that was the only
start
thing
with
with
this
it.
one. Yeah. All right. You want to read it, or you want me to?
It doesn't matter. I'll read it. If you can read it, we can kind of go take turns if you want. You read an article, I'll read an article. But if not, I know how your setup is right now. If it's easier for you, I can read.
I can read it. I can see it and read it. All right. So country music. I'll start reading this first one. So country music star John Rich launches patriotic bank with Ben Carson and Larry Elder. Will never cancel law-abiding customers. So if you could scroll down for me, conspiracy brother, I'll give a little bit more context. This comes from the Daily Wire, I believe. Yep.
Yeah, it's the Daily Wire.
Yes, so country music legend John Rich, conservative commentator Larry Elder, and retired neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson purchased a bank in order to promote American values and oppose cancel culture in the financial system. The three co-founders and stockholders. I still hear the music in the background. Um, Maybe want to cut that off. The three co-founders and stockholders cleared regulatory hurdles to acquire First State Bank of Elmore City, Oklahoma, the state's first and oldest bank. Will rename the financial institution Old Glory Bank. According to the press release, the company will never cancel law-abiding customers for their beliefs and for exercising their lawful rights of free speech. See, nice little headshot of Ben Shapiro there, a conservative pundit, uh, founder of the Daily Wire. Yeah, if you could scroll down a little bit more. All right, cool. It's been dismaying to see the political weaponization of the financial system, Rich commented. Old Glory Bank was created to be a full banking solution for folks who still believe in freedom and the greatness of America. Old Glory Bank clients will be permitted to round up to the nearest dollar every time they make a transaction and donate the funds to charity, including Oklahoma nonprofit organization Folds of Honor, which provides academic scholarships for the spouses and children of fallen soldiers. Among other leaders in the venture is William Shine, the former co-president of Fox News and president of Fox Business News, who serves an executive chairman. The bank, which was backed by the Federal Deposit Insurance and Corporation, plans to openly support first responders and the military, as well as offer no-fee accounts, free overdraft protection, and early deposit access. Old Glory Bank's senior regulatory officer, Bennett Brown, said that cutting edge digital technology will prevent customers from across the nation to access the company's services. Old Glory Bank will serve lower and middle income Americans and those Americans that are marginalized, blah, blah, blah. Um, added Carson worked as a neurosurgeon at Johns Hopkins before leading the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The venture comes as established financial institutions grow increasingly hostile toward free speech. PayPal, most notably, which is deplatformed multiple organizations and commentators for the political views. I remember this, unveiled change to its acceptable use policy that would have banned promotion of misinformation and drawn $2,500 penalties from account holders deemed to be in violation. Then one day of Daily Wire reporting this on the policy change, PayPal reversed, reneged, or backpedaled their guidelines and claimed that they've been published in error. PayPal trended on social media after the retracted acceptable use policy garnered public attention, leading thousands of customers to balk and cancel their accounts. I'm getting awfully close to doing that too. The company stock fell precipitously in subsequent trading. See what else we got. Other companies such as Amazon, Twitter, and Facebook sanction conservatives for the controversial views, including transgenderism, vaccine mandates, homosexuality. GoFundMe seized millions of funds from the trucker freedom protests. Remember that earlier this year. Greater encroachment by large technology and financial companies into public speech will only exacerbate Americans' increasing mistrust of such institutions. Policies that empower companies to punish individuals for beliefs and acting by arbiters of fact in our ever-changing news and public debate environment represent poor business decisions. Instead, large um, technology and financial institutions should focus on the needs of their customers without bias. So a lot there. So, conspiracy brother, go ahead and give us your thoughts. I'm sure you had a few things to say.
For me, you know, I have to say, irrespective of political ideology, I have to support this type of movement
Mm-hmm.
because when you look at the ways, especially with the Twitter files, right? So you've seen
Right.
how the FBI, the CIA, the government, big tech, the Democratic Party have come together to essentially lock out American citizens, violating the constitutional rights to free speech, free association, um, free thought, uh, in order to push agendas, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go over that a little later. Some of the aspects of the Twitter files, we
Oh
might
yeah,
have to do a special show for it.
CIA JFK assassination. We got to definitely hit on that too. Yeah,
Right.
I'll find.
But yeah, I have that article pulled up for that from the Intercept.
Okay, cool, cool.
But even that, we understand the ways in which the intelligence community uh, has been working with the Democratic Party and big tech to do everything they claim Russia was doing, right? To influence the election, to influence the outcome of the election in 2020. And a lot of people don't acknowledge it. They don't admit it. They don't accept that as the facts. They still claim that Trump won in 2016 as a result of Russia. And
Mm-hmm.
so we know now, I mean, if you've read the Twitter files or kept up with the stories at all, we understand what happened. One second.
Yep. Oh, just until conspiracy brother gets back.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm back.
okay.
Oh, and so you see the ways. I mean, the even when they mentioned the trucker protest, right? The Twitter files release show that or it might not have been the Twitter files, but something release show that the Biden administration actually pressured the Canadian government
Mm-hmm.
to um, to uh, exert this authoritarian pressure on its citizens who were peacefully protesting. Right at the bridge, there's a bridge that connects Detroit and Windsor.
Mm-hmm.
There were protests there that were really going to exacerbate economic issues because that is a main bridge. I think it's like the most frequently used transportation link between the U.S. and Canada for transporting goods.
Mm-hmm.
and it was being blocked on the Canadian side. And you look at the ways in which Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has, like they talked about in this article, locked down bank accounts for even people who donated money to the truckers who were protesting in Ottawa over some of these COVID measures. And the measures it wasn't because people were upset about vaccines. I think like 90% of truckers were vaccinated, but it was because they were using tracking software and services using what a lot of people call a digital ID or COVID ID or vaccination ID to track their whereabouts and their personal information. And they weren't supportive of that. And, and you still have Justin Trudeau, and they're talking about the protests in China and how they support the Chinese. And so you have to wonder, and this is this goes to the one, we're not going to really get into it today, the $1.7 trillion budget that they're releasing, the $100 and something billion they want to give to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that for so many of us in the West, when we have issues that we would like our government to address with our tax money that they're taking from us, since they're not going to cut taxes, since they're not going to cut spending, we'd like them to address them on our behalf. They won't do it. But when it comes to these foreign countries, they'll stand up for them, they'll speak up for them, and they'll give them money. You're giving money to the most corrupt country in Europe, but you won't cut our taxes, or you won't spend money here to benefit us as we see fit. In Canada, you won't support your citizenship exercising the constitutional rights given to them by the Constitution of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll talk about China and their right to protest and how the Iranian people have a right to protest. Make it make sense. So that's what I have on that.
Oh, sure. I'm looking for articles right now. We got to definitely add Mr. Zelensky obviously going to Washington. Mr. Zelensky goes to Washington meeting with President Biden and all that. And then, of course, what was the other thing that happened recently? Do we have an article for that? I could pull one up real quick.
What say it again? What's the topic?
Mr. President Zelensky goes to Washington.
Oh no, I don't. Send me an article about it. I didn't pull it up. I didn't pull
Post
the article up for that.
right now. But yeah, just to hit on this article too, like, once again, while I don't probably agree with all of Larry Elder's, politics, as well as Ben Carson, or whoever this country music star is, I didn't even know, I never even heard of him until this article. But I still think it's just very necessary that we, obviously make sure we, stay sovereign to a point. And yeah, we got to create options, because this level of tyranny just isn't feasible. And this has never happened really. I mean, I can't really think of really any cases within this past 5 years where this level of sort of silence, sort of intimidation coming into people's bank accounts regardless of their political beliefs. So I'm all for this. I think there's a certain level of patriotism in America. I feel is necessary. Obviously, these three individuals, they probably may not have the same stance or agree with us with things such as reparations and whatnot, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So I think it's good for us to kind of look and see, okay, these are some things we could definitely rock with, instead of a lot of people that may see one thing they don't agree with somebody with and then just sort of discard them, regardless of what, obviously the character assassination that Ben Carson has gone through. He's done a lot of great things for the Black community. Same with even with Clarence Thomas. There's some things I don't agree with Clarence Thomas on, but just to see the level of, like, even when he called it back in '91, like digital high tech lynching of a Black man that has different views from what the liberal establishment is, instead of I'm being lynched and castrated by a U.S. Senate board instead of lynched by a tree. So I think it's just very important that we start thinking of how we can slowly distance ourselves from these organizations, start supporting different banks, pulling your money together, just slowly, eventually sliding off of these platforms and institutions that hate you, that hate us for how we think, you know. Um, so yeah, I could go on forever. Obviously there's a lot of other Black conservatives out there I wouldn't even call Boyce Watkins a conservative, but obviously I follow like Farrakhan, Rizza Islam. There's a lot of other voices out there that are black truth tellers, and I think something like that going towards that bank was a good step for them. I would support it.
And,
Maybe even open an account there.
and the thing that I'll say, you know, the big thing that we talk about this with capitalism a lot is capitalism breeds competition. And one day I'll find the clip, but it's Jim Cramer, the guy who does that Mad Money show on CNBC,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and he's talking about how really capitalism loves monopoly because monopoly limits variables. So if hey, I got to always pay, let's say, keep numbers small just to work with $5 for these resources, whatever they are. If I got to always pay $2 to wages and whatever all my fees and costs and for labor, for transportation, whatever. If I can minimize the variation in price, that benefits me.
Mm-hmm.
And you best do that either from having a monopoly or like a cartel.
Yeah.
And so, as much as what the elites tell us on the ground, right, the plebes, oh yeah, capitalism is great for competition. You see merger after merger after merger of all these big corporations, right, buying up mom and pops, even in the tech industry. Facebook bought WhatsApp. Facebook bought Instagram. Um, the way that even if you like Elon Musk and his supposed free speech, uh, what is it, absolutism, you understand that he wants to make Twitter a everything app where you can purchase things, where you can use it for social media and like a YouTube and all this stuff to to make it do everything. And that intention is because he wants to be able to control variables. Look at Amazon. Amazon started out as a bookseller, but they sell everything. They sell even your information. There isn't a component for social engagement, but he owns the MGM, the movie company now, or the movie production studio now. IMDb, I think, is owned by Amazon. So there are so many different ways that he purchases information. He buys the trends for, and that was one of the big things about when he was going to try to build a second headquarters. He buys so much information, or procures so much information concerning trends and tendencies in a given area or region, that he makes his um, business decisions off of for market research purposes. And so this is what they're doing. So when you have the opportunity for new comic book companies, new banks, new grocery stores, new media, it makes for a better, more enriching experience because you have options, right? We can give you a different perspective than MSNBC, than a CNN, than a Fox News, because our allegiance is to the truth. It's not to our truth, right? We may have an interpretation, but our allegiance is to the facts, and we try our best to present the facts, and we may interpret them, but we always let you know this is our interpretation, right? CNN, MSNBC, when Don Lemon is talking to you, Don Lemon speaks as though his word is the word of God. When
Yeah.
Rachel Maddow speaks to you, she speaks to you as though her word is the word of God. I don't
Undisputed
have
God.
that.
Yeah.
Right. We don't have that perspective. We're just trying to give you the information as we can accrue it and obtain it to present to everybody so that you can all be free.
Yeah, most definitely. A great point there. And we could probably move on to the next article, but I wanted to kind of touch on what you hit on just while you're pulling that article up. Definitely, the biggest problem is most people, especially on the left, they demonize capitalism and free market enterprise. They confuse that with oligarchy, corporatism. Corporatism breeds oligarchy. Oligarchy eventually uh, breeds fascism. So when you talk about free market capitalism, we're talking about small business owners. We're talking about mom and pop. Maybe $100,000 and under, maybe $250,000 and under. Regardless of the number, there comes a point, like you said, where it becomes a monopoly. You have mergers and acquisitions, and thanks to obviously Clinton and I think it was the Telecommunications Act, that just ushered in all types of unchecked, less regulation on mergers. So I think most people that when they just say capitalism is evil, free market enterprise is evil, no, it's the it's the behavior and unregulated ethics of companies merging that become these oligarchies that become, the very corporatism where big tech aligns with big government. That is fascism. And it's the fascism, oligarchy, and corporatism that's the real enemy, not capitalism, free market systems that everyone can take advantage of. So that I wanted to kind of just hit on that point. Obviously, and yeah, we can move on to the next article. And while you pull that up, uh, definitely, yeah. Don Lemon, yeah. A lot I got to say about that guy, but that just goes to be that's CNN for you. Yep. So what's our next
Okay,
article, brother?
I'm gonna pull up this New York Times article. It's called let's see if it's coming along. Um, the emptiest city in America, or the emptiest downtown in America. Let's see. I
Hmm.
got to go through because I'm not subscribed to the New York Times. I always have to go through some back channels, but
Right.
I
They
could,
throw
I
that
could,
paywall up on you.
yeah, but
Uh,
technology allows you to find a way to freedom,
well,
and
there's
so that's
always
why we're here.
a way around that shit.
Yeah. Well, here, let's see. I'll bring up this article with the January 6th committee from Deadline.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Yeah, I think they just got renewed for a third season. January
Right.
6th official.
Do you want me to read this one?
Yeah, you can read this one.
Okay. Now it's a deadline. It says January 6th committee report. Oh, releases final report as let's see, as new details are.
Oh, oh, conspiracy brother. Okay, I think we just lost conspiracy brother. All right, but I'll read the article for those of you guys tuning in. January.
Disappointed.
Oh, are you back?
Oh yeah. Was I? Did I? You can read it. It's fine.
Oh no, no, you dropped off for a minute, but you're back. You can read it since I read the last one, and we'll
Okay.
go back.
So let me go over it again. So it says our country. So days after January 6th committee recommended four staggering charges against former President Donald Trump, the panel had this evening released its final report. Quote, quote, our country has come too far to allow a defeated president to turn himself into a successful tyrant by upending our democratic institutions, fomenting violence, and, as I saw it, opening the door to those in our country whose hatred and bigotry threaten equality and justice for all Americans, end quote. Committee Chairman Benny Thompson wrote in his opening statement. CNN and MSNBC covered the release as breaking news, but Fox News largely avoided it as the report came during the 9 p.m. hour of the Ingram angle. The release comes after the committee began to release transcripts of committee interviews, including those with Cassidy Hutchinson, the former aide to Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, who detailed the pressure she was put under by Trump loyalists not to recall key details of the events leading up to January 6th. Hutchinson, who was one of the committee's star witnesses, told the panel in September that Stephen Passantino, a former Trump White House lawyer who initially represented her, wanted her to focus on protecting Trump when she went before the committee. She also said that her boss, Meadows, told her that Trump knew that he lost the election but pressed forward with his false election claims anyway. The 18-month so let me just pause because this is kind of something that really needs to be amplified.
Yep.
when you when you're looking at it, and people will try to say, um, people will try to say this wasn't a trial It was an investigation. And that is true.
Mm-hmm.
However, your witness, your witness, the if anybody ever goes back and watches, you can look up Jimmy Dore videos. He breaks down Cassidy Hutchinson's witness statement.
Oh
I
yeah,
guess because it's not a
she was the bimbo in the limo who was like, "Oh my God, Trump grabbed the wheel." That was her.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yes. But like everything she says is hearsay.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, even here in the article, it says um, who detailed the pressure she was put under not to recall key details of the event. And then she says that Stefan Passantino wanted her to focus. You have her saying all this. I could go up there and say, Cassidy Hutchinson told me XYZ. And because the committee either didn't call these people up to be interviewed, publicly at least, or because this is not a trial. And so there's no cross examination, there's
Mm-hmm.
uh, no opportunity for the quote unquote or who would be defense in this situation to bring their own evidence and ask their own pertinent questions because the committee is full of people who have an axe to grind with Trump, like Dick Cheney's daughter, like Kinzinger, I can't remember his first name, and all the Democrats that they just, as a rule, whatever Trump did was always wrong, no matter what.
Yeah, it's a kangaroo court, nothing more, nothing less. And Liz Cheney kind of using this to platform herself and kind of like make friends with the Democrats. But anyway, continue. Your point.
Well, and so you can't look at this as an objective. I have no dog in this fight.
Right.
The only objective that I am after, as I've stated, is truth. So if Trump
Yeah.
did this, let him hang for it,
Right.
right? But if the truth is what you stand on, the truth doesn't need any help. It just needs to get out. You don't
That's a
have to,
bar.
you don't have to massage the truth. Just put it out there. So you have a woman who didn't experience, she didn't hear, she did a lot of the stuff that she even testifies to,
Mm-hmm.
or in her witness statement, is hearsay. It's second and third hand conversations that I'm supposed to take as gospel because she said it, because Trump is bad.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. It makes absolutely no sense, especially when we know the long list of lies that have been told by politicians, right? Dick
Right.
Cheney, George Bush, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, just to name the most recent,
Mm-hmm.
have told lies at the level easily of anything Trump has done.
Yeah. It's like, why not give
And
fair
I'm
treatment?
supposed to just believe this.
Because
You,
they expect.
sorry.
Oh no, cool. Yeah, no, keep going. I got a few things to say, but you can finish the
Oh, no,
article
you can
though.
say it out. That's why I was letting you speak. I didn't want to monopolize the
No, no,
situation.
no. It's cool, and it's something I wanted to. I kind of hit this on with a group meet with a friend of ours. That's like, oh, here's the. I think I originally shared this article, but he was like, oh well, and this whole, and he ended up sharing another article that had the same, had a same art, a different article, but had the same link to like an 800-page report. And like I said, I mean, I kept it very simple with this with this meme I shared. Sorry, I'm like kind of outside right now, uh, but let me pull that up. The meme I shared, very simple, because once again, a lot of people think, oh, if it's a meme, it's not true. Obviously, I don't post stuff without having. Oh, sorry, hold on a second. Okay, hold on. Move to a different area. I'm like in a part of a skate park at an undisclosed beach. But basically, like you were mentioning, like you can't look at any cross evidence. They won't interview any members from from the opposing side. And what's crazy about it is that no, I'm not gonna like read an 800-page article from an organization that's long compromised, and that goes for the GOP as well as these Democrats and establishment Republicans that put it together. And it kind of goes back to just the real lack of critical thinking, to where people take every single government report, like this report, like, CIA Twitter files dropping CIA documents. That's different from these sort of kangaroo court documents. So I'm not going to read an 800-page report when I already know who's the cook behind, in the kitchen. So
Right.
I want, yeah, that was my
I
point.
mean, like you said, in the earlier when we were having this conversation with that associate. But
Our
I'm
friend, yeah.
sitting here. I to read an 800-page report for what? I mean, for all the Harry Potter books.
He didn't even read it. I know he
But
didn't
I'm
even read
but I'm saying the first 4 Harry Potter books is 800 pages.
it. Like,
You know what I'm saying? That's a lot. For what? For what? What story are you telling me that requires 845 pages? And I'm saying that to put it into a context. Those 4 books told you a story. They set a scene. It was a series of events. It created a world. What are
mm-hmm.
you doing that requires you to send me an 845-page report about this? But this is the thing. When you work in government, you learn how to maneuver the levers of government.
Mm-hmm.
And what that requires, you put all these bills, they make them hundreds of pages long because they know you won't be able to read them in enough time to get them passed. Nobody can read an 800-page report in enough time to go through it before Liz Cheney's out of Congress, before Adam Kinzinger's out of Congress. So nobody has to sit and say anything reasonable about it. That's all this is. Obfuscation. It's complete politicking. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to believe that Trump is bad, this, like they called it, confirmation bias.
Yep.
This allows you to have your biases confirmed. And it is justified because you have 2 Republicans who claim to be never Trump. So never Trumpers is just like back in the 50s when you had segregationists who said never supporting Negroes.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, well, look, they voted and they said black people are inferior, so that must be true. It's bipartisan. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's no different. It's no different. You lose credibility by having people on the panel who claim to be never Trumpers.
Don't even hide their bias. At least I have some respect. You don't even hide their bias. Or like,
I can respect you in that regard because I know you're going to lie. But I can't take your word for nothing else. I can't believe that what you say about Trump it's just like when they have that riddle. This thing tells all this brother tells a lie, and this brother tells the truth, and which is which? You have to do some digging, but ultimately you understand it's a wash. Because I know everything you say, if it could even benefit Trump at all, you're going to lie about it because you don't like him personally. And so you got a panel full of people who dislike Trump. The same way when Emmett Till got murdered, and you had a panel full of guys that took them 45 minutes to deliberate because they all had acquitted the guys who killed him because Emmett Till is black. It's no different.
It's exposure.
How do you find justice in a corrupt situation?
They tell on themselves. Right then and there, you can see it.
You undermine the credibility of the process. They would legally be allowed to have a jury in the country because they're so compromised. If they were sat before a judge to serve jury duty, None of those people will even be able to serve jury duty. They're so they wouldn't even be able to have a trial in this country. They'd have to go to some untouched tribe somewhere because everybody's so politically compromised. They could not be objective and look at the facts and make us an honest and open revelation about what is going on based on the facts. You know what I'm saying?
No, you couldn't have put it any better, man. Couldn't have put it any better.
I
Yeah,
don't
so
want to go over this whole article, but even this, Liz
right.
Cheney says the most shameful finding from the hearing was that he sat dining room of the Oval Office watching the violent riot at the Capitol. What was he supposed to do? Because then she says next, for hours he would not issue a public statement instructing his supporters to disperse. Now that's been long debunked.
No,
Uh,
yeah. That's
I don't,
that tweet. That tweet was up, and they of course censored that when they kicked him off of Twitter. But that alone with his
he
tweets was debunked. And let's not even talk about
long
Pelosi.
debunked.
Pelosi sitting back and sort of letting it happen. But of
Well,
course,
they
we're
all
not going to
let it
hear
happen.
anything like that.
They all let it happen. They even talk
Mm-hmm.
about how the security, the FBI, or whoever was doing security in the police, the Capitol Police, they left the guy Ray Epps. I'm sure a lot of people, if you listen to
Yeah,
our show, you've heard of Ray Epps.
he's a
But
plug.
Ray Epps is either an FBI agent, an undercover agent, or some type of informant or employee undercover for the FBI. And he's on tape saying, "We got to go tomorrow. We got to go to the Capitol. We got to go inside." And they're booing him, and all these different conservatives and Trump supporters are booing him, calling him a Fed. So what happens the next day? Ray Epps goes into he leads people into the Capitol, and
Oh
just
yeah.
so happens the area that he sends people through, it was
Mm-hmm.
secure. There were police officers there. There was security there, but all those security and police left when they found pipe bombs at the GOP and the Democratic congressional buildings.
Leading sheep to the slaughter.
Conveniently, conveniently, this
Mm-hmm.
either FBI agent or informant led people through into the Capitol where there was no security and nobody, no FBI, nobody, nothing has brought him in for questioning or charges. And I'm supposed to just think there's nothing wrong with it. But you going down to the middle of nowhere, finding 90-year-old grandfathers and taking them to court.
Who were
And here
just
you got a man
outside the
on camera.
Capitol. Who were just outside the Capitol, just hanging out.
And you got a man on camera saying we need to go into the Capitol. And Ray Epps is the person who recorded Ashley Babbitt being shot in the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
You have this man's his face, his name on camera, and haven't heard about him going to jail one time. Make it make
And then we
sense.
and then we still got political prisoners from J6 who have been starving to death, solitary confinement, no, just political prisoners held without jury, held without a trial. And that should really scare people. It was really creepy is the fact that the BLM, Antifa, and once again, when I say BLM, obviously I got my beefs with the organization. I'm not saying every BLM protester that showed up there just turned into a violent rioter. Obviously, there were people there with good intentions, manipulated. Then of course you got the Antifa and other criminals just showing up rioting, and then they created the Summer of Love, as they call it. Where is our BLM Antifa Summer 2020 riots committee? All right, let me see that along with a 1,000-page report before any of this other January 6th nonsense. But sorry about that deflection. But yeah, just to get back to your point, it's just a matter of like all these different things that are coming out with J6, and Jimmy Dore does a great job kind of debunking and kind of going through that. But you just have to take your bias aside. I have a level of neutral disdain for every president at this point. Clinton, George Bush, HW, Obama, all of them. But I have to find something about Trump and J6 and demonize it all. This is just a dangerous path that has been set, and you shouldn't let this is a really good analogy I like to say is that you never put all your worship and hope into one politician. Putting all your hope, whether whether you support them fully or if you hate them all the way, putting all your hope and attention into one politician is like going to the strip club and you thinking the stripper really likes you. All right, let me go over that again. Like you put all your hope and all your worship and praise or attention into one politician. That's like going to the strip club and really thinking the stripper likes you. She don't like you. She gaming you. Just like every politician games you on the left and the right. So let's call it how it is and call out this BS that this J6 committee is, the kangaroo court. Like I said. And I'm gonna just land
Basically,
my plane there on this topic.
basically, what you said is that's simping.
Yep.
And all these people are political simps. We've heard that word thrown around a lot nowadays, and a lot of it is being thrown around improperly. But that's what's happening. When you're giving somebody something they don't deserve, that's simping. When you're giving more than you can afford and the person who you're giving it to doesn't deserve it, that's simping.
Mm-hmm. Simping, simping. It's my Cat Williams voice right there. Simping, simping. Anyway, all right.
We got let's do
I'm on one.
let's do our next article. We'll end there with that one. Because
Yeah,
we don't need to give the January 6th committee more time. It's completely
exactly. We don't need to give it more attention or energy to our lives. we got
here.
Mr. Zelensky to get to. We got Twitter files. We got Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX. We got to at least hit those three too. You know, at least
Right.
before we
Here's a
wrap.
good one though.
Yeah.
Here's the good
Mm-hmm.
one that I wanted to try to hit. From
All
7 days
right, cool.
ago, BBC World News: U.S. to end crack and powder cocaine sentencing disparity. Okay, so the U.S. Justice Department has moved to end the sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine offenses, ending a policy widely seen as racist. Attorney General Merrick Garland said in a memo that the policy drives unwarranted racial disparities in our criminal justice system. President Joe Biden had back ditching the sentencing guidelines he himself crafted as a senator decades ago. Let me repeat that. President Joe Biden had backed ditching the sentencing guidelines he himself crafted as a senator decades ago. The
Shocking.
new rule, the new
Shocking.
rule will take effect within 30 days. It it does not apply retroactively. So everybody that's still in prison, everybody who's in prison still for the disproportionate sentencing between crack and powder cocaine, you got to stay there.
Once again, shocking.
The new crackheads, that's cool. Y'all good. I don't know of any new crackheads out there, but y'all safe.
Little Johnny come
Doing
latelys.
coke.
Yeah.
I know people are still doing coke, but I think most people have kind of stepped off the crack bandwagon, but I could be wrong. Friday's updated guidelines call for prosecutors to promote the equivalent treatment of crack and cocaine offenses. That's quote, promote, end quote. Quote, the crack/powder disparity in sentencing has no basis in science, furthers no law enforcement purposes, and drives unwarranted racial disparities in our criminal justice system, end quote, said the Justice Department memo to federal prosecutors. The policy was created by the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act, which was crafted by then Senator Joseph Robinette Biden. I added some of that for emphasis on my own part. That's your
Biden.
president right
Wow,
now.
it's a pattern.
The president that you voted for, the president y'all love so much, the president that loved that what's his name in South Carolina, always soft shoeing around. I forget his name now.
Well,
Well,
you don't vote for me,
Clyburn.
black, but that's what I remember.
He said Joe knows us and we know him. If Joe knows us, it's because he put us all in prison. That's why he
Right.
knows us.
Yeah, he knows us very well, unfortunately, but that's not a good. Not in a good way. He knows us.
The law mandated a 5-year minimum sentence for trafficking in 500 grams of powder cocaine or 5 grams of crack. 500 grams is a half a kilo. That's about a pound. 500 grams is about a pound. So you could have a pound of crack and get a pound of powder cocaine and get the same amount of time as 5 grams of crack.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
just so happens what? Joe Biden's son is a crackhead and he still ain't getting no time.
Mm-hmm.
There's a video, it's a meme of Joe Biden in Congress, in the Senate, saying, we put people, you'll not go to jail for less than 5 years if you have cocaine the size of this quarter. He's holding up a quarter, and it's a split screen. And then the other side is his son lighting up a crack pipe.
Yeah.
And this is the man y'all made president. Or, allowed to steal the presidency. I don't know what y'all,
And
what you
and, and
believe.
put and put
Whatever you
and
believe.
and put thousands. I want hundreds of thousands of black men incarcerated, broke up families, but yet you can't get the one crackhead who happens to have a little bit of uh, privilege or politician privilege. He's good, but all the other black families, communities, hey.
I just want to know. How is it that his son is able to make all this money, do all these deals, and ain't nobody saying nothing about it? How do you seriously think, how do you let them convince you that Trump was so bad that you put this guy in office? Even if, let's say, the election was stolen, some
Yeah.
people still had to vote for Joe Biden to make it convincing. How did you let them convince you that a guy who created the crime bill and this drug act, which destroyed our community,
Mm-hmm.
was a better alternative? How did you fall for that? Everybody who voted for Joe Biden, how did you fall for that?
They just did. They did. It's that sort of blue wall. They say blue wall of silence. It doesn't apply for just police. It also applies to the boys in blue or the Southern Dixiecrats as well. So you can literally fail up. There's like so many cases of like Gavin Newsom tanking California, doing all this shit, and now he was potentially like a 2024 presidential candidate. You got Cory Bush, like radical lefty out in St. Louis, uh, failing up. And it's like all these cases of this blue wall. I would like to say kind of blue privilege, like Democrat privilege. They could fail up and do all this shit, but they got people in the right places to where hey, we're not going to look at that, or hey, they're all in a business together. So it just doesn't surprise me. I think a great guy to follow, Dr. Boyce Watkins. He did a great series of videos on just all the different tactics the Democratic Party uses to manipulate the black vote. Obviously, he's not the only one speaking truth on it, but it's just long. What I like to say is that I would say that the way the Democrat Party manipulates black people into voting for them every 4 years, the same way you got the GOP and establishment Republicans, how they end up manipulating and then selling out middle America and the white collar workers, the Democrat Party does the same thing to us. What the Democrat Party does to black folks is the same thing that the GOP establishment Republicans screw over the little middle America as well. And it's just something that's been ongoing. And like I said, I like to call it like a blue wall of silence and also blue privilege. Blue privilege. Democrats can fail up, and there still be no consequences or accountability, and we see it over and over again.
Completely.
Mm.
There's countless videos of Joe Biden saying all types of racist things. And then to let a man who created a bill that disproportionately racially aided in targeting racially our justice system, right? If Mitch McConnell had done it, you'd never hear the end of it. If Chuck Grassley, if Strom Thurmond, who was Joe Biden's friend, if if Robert Byrd, former KKK member, who they act like, oh well, he converted, he changed, he renounced his ways, who was a
Yeah.
Democratic senator from West Virginia, had done it, you would have heard the end of it because he was a Democrat, and so they didn't talk about it.
Yep.
I forget the other racist senator that Joe Biden was really good friends with. You wouldn't have heard about it.
Yeah.
But if Strom Thurmond had done it because he ended up becoming a Republican later in his life, you never would have heard the end of it. Now, Strom Thurmond was a Democrat for a very long time.
Yeah.
He didn't change his political affiliation. Maybe he didn't change it ever because he's one of those old school Democrats from when the Democrats was the party of segregation. But like I said, with Mitch McConnell, any Republican, if a Republican had done any of this stuff, you'd never hear the end of it. But because it's Joe Biden and Joe Biden's son, it's not something you talk about. His son is a crackhead who also may be a pedophile. And you never hear it brought up. The whole point of the Twitter files was showing how the government was silencing people, even trying to bring up the laptop, which had all this evidence in it that we're even discussing with respect to this specific topic.
And that goes
I've never seen a crackhead smoke crack on camera so much as Joe Biden's son.
And that just goes
and he
back.
Ain't never been to jail.
Tribalism, man. People at this point, and I'm on Twitter or whatnot. A lot of times you get a lot of these lefties, like as soon as you bring up Hunter Biden, pedophilia, they'll throw up this sort of list of all the convicted Republicans convicted of pedophiles. It's like the same copy and paste meme. Once again, there's probably a lot of truth to that, but it shouldn't be about Republican, Democrat at this point. You are so convinced and just love drunk on your side that you don't see anything that the Democrats do, all the corruption, all the pedophilia, the crack and all that stuff. But you'll just point it out for Republicans. Like, hey, it ain't about Republican or Democrat. I'm neither. So you shouldn't be so gung-ho and like, well, these are all the Republicans that got convicted of pedophilia. Well, bro, you shouldn't be still Team Democrat because there's plenty of that too. Like, this should be a bipartisan come to Jesus moment where you can't defend one political party anymore because you in your feelings. You got to call it out on both sides. But instead,
let's look at that.
Censored.
Let's look at that at face value, though. Hunter Biden's a pedophile, but look at all these Republicans pedophile. Like, is that where we are?
So, yeah, they're both pedophiles. Republican, Democrat, they're both shit.
Let's get rid of both of them. And there's this Whitney Webb has a video, a book out where she discusses it. You can look at. Jimmy Dore does a long form interview with her, and she breaks down that J. Edgar Hoover was a pedophile too, and that the U.S. government has a long history of using pedophilia on high-profile individuals in order to get power and leverage over them. Jeffrey Epstein was not just some anomaly in the history of American foreign policy. I would advise everybody to go check it out. Whitney Webb, I got to read her book. It's 2 books. But she breaks down how the U.S. government, with the mob, right, the intelligence state, the secret, the deep state, and the mob, work together with pedophiles and stuff to get dirt on people. J. Edgar Hoover did gay activities and pedophilia.
And that's a lot of parties.
And that's why they said Hoover, the FBI never went after the mob because they had dirt on them. It's wild. It's wild. It's wild shit.
The mob knew.
And I would encourage everybody to go look up and read.
Because I think Vegas was founded in the 1920s, and that started out as, even back then, they were starting to put dirt on people. Founded Las Vegas. Bring what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and that's pretty much the birthplace, I think, of a lot of it, of leveraging, getting dirt on people, catching them in an uncompromised position, got you on tape. So yeah, definitely the mob has long been rooted in that. And, even from Las Vegas's foundings. But yeah, we could kind of probably wrap this article up, or unless you want to keep reading. But
I just wanted to hit a couple more points. I know we've talked a long time, and I apologize.
Oh no,
so
cool.
It says the now president has led calls for the policy to be scrapped. The sentencing gap is since narrowed from 100-1 to 18-1. Mr. Biden's own son, Hunter, has written about his personal struggles with drug abuse, including crack cocaine, Racial justice advocates cheered Friday's move, saying it was needed to help reform a sentencing protocol that saw Black Americans disproportionately incarcerated, but they emphasized that ongoing congressional efforts to codify the change into law were key. Senator Cory Booker, a New Jersey Democrat who is sponsoring legislation to change the law on cocaine sentencing, said today's announcement recognizes this injustice and takes steps to finally strike parity between powder and crack, and there's no pharmacological differences in the substances. So that's it. And here's the thing. Why are you sending people to jail for it anyway? That's the real situation. Why aren't we trying to figure out ways to address the socio-economic reasons that people rely on drugs, right? You make criminals by criminalizing it. If you allow people to purchase drugs like they purchase cigarettes, or if you criminalize cigarettes the same way you criminalize cocaine, you'd have these same issues. If a person could work a job and do cocaine like they used to, they could afford to fund their habit. But they have to resort to theft and all this crime and all this other kind of ridiculousness because you can't do it in a way that is conducive to your life doing other things. Now, some people are far gone, but that's true with alcoholics, and that's also true for people who smoke.
Yep.
That there are always going to be people who take things too far. But if you put these unnecessary hurdles in people's lives, you create the situation. And that's all from people in the prison industrial complex. They want to make sure that people are going to prison because they get paid. So prison lobbies are some of the largest groups who oppose drug legalization and decriminalization. Prison lobbies, right? So this is where you see this is all, and just so coincidentally, this is 7 days ago, this article was written. Coincidentally, when the House is going to be Republican and the Democrats aren't going to be able to do much of anything in the Senate because Sinema has switched her affiliation from Democrat to independent. You want to try to talk about changing the drug sentencing when you had 2 years. You had 2 years to change this, where you had the Democrats in the House and the Senate. You had 2 years to change this. Where, they do this all the time. They always act like, but we got to try to get this pushed through. The Republicans, they just won't. But when you want to pass a $1.7 trillion budget plan that most Americans are against, sending money to Ukraine, sending money to all these other foreign countries, and leaving us here at home out in the cold, you don't have a problem. Chuck, what's it? Mitch McConnell called it winning. And I can't remember who, I think it was Tucker Carlson. Or no, it was Rand Paul. Rand Paul stood up in the Senate. He said, if this is what winning looks like, I'm tired of winning. Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, fellow Kentuckian. Mm-hmm. He said, if this is what winning looks like, I'm tired of winning. You've taken the deficit spending to $31 trillion with a $1.7 trillion budget deal. How do they never find an excuse to cut something then? You want to increase military spending $45 billion. You're sending weapons to Ukraine. Make it make sense.
We can
get off this topic now.
I get for sure. And just as we wrap up, if you want to pull up the next article, yeah, I'd say shockingly, Senator Rand Paul is probably one of the few Republicans I do like and rock with, because you could tell he stands by principles, whether it be COVID, whether it be Ukraine. Once again, I'm sure I don't agree with him on everything, but you could just tell the ones that are just have no spine, no backbone, and in the pockets of whatever special interest suits them. And comes to a law like this, like it's a little, once again, too little, too late. And once again, we're spending all this money abroad that we could clearly, some little crack amendment law isn't going to make up for the $50 billion we're still sending to Ukraine. That could do more than enough back home. But yeah, I think we definitely kind of said all we need to say there.
I'll bring the BBC article up about your boy Zelensky.
Let's go. Let's talk about it. Oh, I got a lot to say.
Woo. And the last thing I'll say about this with the crack thing, because you kind of jogged me on a different point. This still does nothing to the decades of harm that have been caused by this bill. Right? Mm-hmm. So where's the reparations now? Because it's still not going to be done retroactively. So where are the reparations to the communities of all these people who had lost mothers and fathers and sons and brothers
Mm.
and mothers and daughters because of the disproportionate application of this law.
Yep, these are really hard questions. All right, so this comes from BBC News. Mr. Zelensky finally goes to Washington. So obviously, this has been making a lot of press. You know, obviously, we're going to get to obviously this one. Before we wrap up, we definitely want
No,
to hit on Sam. Hmm?
this looks like it's from September 2021.
Oh shoot! Oh, that's weird. Oh, my bad on that. Let me see
Yeah,
if I can
let's see. I'll
let me pull up. Wait, while you pull up a recent article, I'll just kind of hit on the point. Obviously, while Conspiracy Brother looks up another article, just like a recent article. Obviously, Mr. Zelensky, Vladimir Zelensky, President of Ukraine, met with President Biden this week at the White House. I guess for the first time since the initial Russia-Ukraine conflict war broke out. And obviously, a lot of people have a lot to say. We can get into like, oh, he didn't show up wearing a suit. He came in military style, But at the end of the day, a lot of this is just a grandstanding that they can kind of use to set the history books. And I think what pissed a lot more people off, that pissed me off, was when he kind of went up there and said, well, just know that this money is not charity. It is an investment into the global security. And it felt so 1984. I can't really think of a time like this where the U.S. Machine is political machine has put so much, given so much platform and prestige to a president like this. And it's so black and white. We can get into the neo Nazis in Ukraine. We can get into, there's good and bad on both sides. And it's just bugging my mind just the level of propaganda, like state-run propaganda, that just pushing this Zelensky guy up, who was just literally a few years ago, like 8 years ago, just an actor. And then of course they run the 2014 coup in Ukraine. All of a sudden he's the president, and it's just a money laundering operation. There's so much we can dive into this, but I want to try and keep a focus just on the trip. Those funny little Photoshop memes of Biden grabbing Zelensky's ass, and all that little foolery. But I think at the end of the day, there's just so many people that are just so bought into this propaganda, and this is just very dangerous where we're at. And obviously, Biden, Zelensky, they're just puppets to this whole bigger agenda. But I wanted to kind of at least open there. And if you want a conspiracy, brother, I could read maybe part of this article. I mean, I think we kind of know enough, but we can kind of just
I
touch
got
on
three
it.
articles, so I was going to ask you. I've
Yeah.
got the Washington Post,
Okay.
the Daily Beast, and then I've got a BBC article. So I don't know which one you want to use. Whichever one you prefer.
Yeah. Whichever's. Let's just
Well,
go with.
they're all going to be kind of slanted, but I mean, I'm more than
Let's go with.
confident we'll be able to kind
Let's put it up with BBC, and I'll read it.
of. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Here we go. All right, so just scroll down. I'll start reading the article. How did President Zelensky get to Washington? From BBC. Extraordinary measures taken to transport Ukrainian President, I thought it was Vladimir, I can't even pronounce that, Zelensky from Ukraine to the U.S. Capitol are just a sign of just how crucial the relationship is for both countries. So I think we can already see the bias here. BBC's long captured. After visiting the front line in eastern Ukraine, Thursday, Eastern Ukraine on Tuesday, Mr. Zelensky's journey to Washington, D.C. began with an overnight train journey to Poland before boarding U.S. Air Force One, reportedly supported by NATO spy plane F-15 fighter jet. Reports of the visit to the Washington began circulating early this week, but it wasn't confirmed until early on Wednesday morning when U.S. officials felt certain that Ukraine's leader was safely en route to the U.S. Capitol. The visit has been discussed for months, and the final preparations were made quickly. Two U.S. presidents spoke about it on 11th of December, and an invitation was extended to Mr. Zelensky 3 days later. Only once visit, only once the visit had been confirmed, final plans put into action. Surprisingly, no official information about the journey was released. Um, Security was tight. Presidential visits during peacetime, with the threat of Russian missiles, make air travel over Ukraine too risky. Mr. Zelensky appears to have a secretive train ride through Ukraine to Poland and was spotted early Wednesday in a rail station in border town of Primsel. Oh yeah, conspiracy brother, if you could scroll down. I'm not sure how those articles given the best context, but keep going. Um, yeah, they keep.
I'll do the Daily Beast. I'll do the Daily Beast because that one seems to be more about how he actually physically got there, and I thought it was going to be more
Right, it's like physical,
along the lines
you
of
know.
like I thought that was more like a metaphorical how he got here. You know, it's like giving me the logisticals.
Right, it's like who? Yeah, I don't give a shit. You know, I'm not saying to you, to them. They're like,
Right,
oh,
right.
this
Well,
is
yeah, no, we don't. I mean, I'm not really concerned with how he got there. I'm not looking for him. So,
it's
seems
4 hours
weird that
Poland due to the missiles in Ukraine. It was too much of a risk. So, like, motherfucker, this ain't a goddamn story time.
right.
You know. Uh,
I got the Daily Beast. It's an opinion article. It says, but that's probably all of them on the Daily Beast anyway. So,
all right. Well, I mean, I don't have to. We can kind of just hit on our thoughts. I mean, I think we kind of get a general context of why he's there. But yeah, conspiracy brother, what are your thoughts? Obviously, we could touch more on Ukraine as a whole, but just your thoughts generally on Mr. Zelensky meeting Joe Biden at the White House.
well, you know what, man, the guy is an actor, and I feel like you cannot discount the role that Hollywood plays in trying to uh, really orchestrate all these interactions on TV, the way that things are presented, uh, the way they try to completely lay out everything you see. So, I mean, they're losing bad. I watch the Duran a lot. Listen to Scott Ritter. Listen to Redacted. Listen to not General Colonel McGregor, Jeffrey Sachs. You can listen to Professor John Mearsheimer. The Duran is hosted by two men, one in the UK, one in Cyprus, both Greek, Alex Christoforou and Alexander Mercouris. And they're losing. Ukraine is losing. Anybody who is interested in telling you the truth is losing. They're going to be sending Patriot missiles to Ukraine. And everywhere that the U.S. government has sent Patriot missiles, they have not worked. Every single place. They have. But what it does is it allows the military industrial complex to make more money. They're going to make $40 to $50 billion off these contracts, sending weapons. Um, so, what we're going to see, one second, we're going to see U.S. They're going to have to be manned and controlled by U.S. soldiers, right? Can you hear me? Let's see. What happened?
Hello.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
No, it's like I can't hear you.
How about now? Hello.
I don't
Can
know
you hear me
what in
now?
the world.
Hello.
Okay, that should be good now. Yeah, but
Can you
did
hear
you
me?
hear me? Did you hear me?
Yeah, I caught all that. Yep.
Okay, so the Patriot missiles they don't work wherever they go, and they need to be manned by U.S. military operatives or personnel because they're very hard to be trained on and very hard to operate. So they're going to be U.S. military soldiers in Ukraine using them who are going to be getting shot at by Russians. So this is going to be a potential escalation of the war in Ukraine because U.S. So it's just, I mean, and we're giving this guy billions and billions of dollars, at a time. I think some number I said is about 114 billion total now. And the thing that nobody's talking about is this is the country where Joe Biden's son were Mitt Romney's son, John Kerry's stepson, and Nancy Pelosi's son, among other U.S. diplomatic uh, uh, leaders' children, were working and doing business. This is the corrupt country that these people, and we're giving them all this money, and that don't make sense. That's not strange to anyone, right? Trump, when he first with the first impeachment, when he was saying, "Hey, we need to investigate Hunter Biden," this is what they impeached him for, talking about this country, talking about the corruption in this country, and then fast forward 3-4 years, and now we're giving them hundreds of billions of dollars. That's not strange to anybody. That's not weird to anybody.
Nothing to see here.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the part about it all that like, I want to be optimistic about people and their ability to kind of see through things, see through the BS, see through the noise. But it's just like, how do you allow the mass media to convince you that stuff that doesn't make sense makes sense? This guy, he's worth like a couple $100 million, like $500 million. He's got a home in Miami. He was literally like a no-name actor on the global scale. Ukraine don't have enough money for the type of actor that he was to have that much money. And nobody sees a problem with it. You know, all the money, and this is why, like, even when like Sam Harris, he was on the show. It's called Trigonometry. It's these two British guys. One of the guys is like Ukrainian, but he's been living in the UK for a long time. And they were talking about the whole situation with Hunter Biden's laptop. And Sam Harris says nothing on the laptop is as bad as Trump University. And even if Hunter Biden had bodies in his basement, of children in his basement, it wouldn't matter because it had nothing to do with Joe Biden. When we know through the laptop, through emails and text messages from Hunter Biden's associates, this is why this is different than the Cassidy Hutchinson situation, because this is from associates with proof, right? This is actual proof that can be backdated and checked and cross-checked and verified. This ain't just somebody's word. It shows, we got to get 10% for the big guy, with the big guy being Joe Biden. So not only was he intimately involved in the process of of Hunter's dealings, but he was being paid as a government official overseeing the safety and administration in this foreign country who he was giving aid to. And you want to say Trump University, while Trump was a private citizen, when he was, even if it was a fraudulent organization or fraudulent school, it was legal. It's so legal to the point where there have been no charges filed against him for fraud. That's worse than potentially, his words, Hunter Biden having the bodies of kids buried in his basement. This is where we are. I just have to throw my hands up. I don't, I can't, it's hard for me to process some of it, because like I said, I want to believe that people just need to be nudged in the direction of information and truth, and they'll just burst through the doors and they'll break the chains and take off, like the brainwashing cap or whatever, but they won't. You get invested in the lives of people and their lies, and they don't have any connection to you, right? What I'm invested in is the truth. That's why we're doing this stuff. So you could say, well, you're doing the same thing. We're invested in the truth. We're not invested in, I don't care about Zelensky as a human being. I want to know where my tax money's going. I want to know why you tell me you can't pay for everybody to have health care, which, my whole perception of government-sponsored health care has really gone through a metamorphosis. So I'm not even saying that I support it, but I'm saying on paper, you tell us you can't afford to, but you've given a foreign country who doesn't even pay taxes to the United States $114 billion in the span of like less than 6 months. Or well, no, I guess it's almost a year, because February it'll be a year.
Yeah.
You've given them $114 billion in a little under a year. Make that make sense. I'm
Please.
just trying to figure the truth. What is at the bottom of all of this? What is going on? I know there's corruption. I know there's corruption. But
Mm-hmm.
how doesn't everybody else see it?
You pretty much nailed that, hit the nail right on the head, man. I mean, at this point, people are going to see what they want to see. We call this uncomfy truth for a reason because we stand on truth first. We're not loyal to uh, one political party or the next. Obviously, we're mainly black first, but we even call out black politicians, people on the right and the left, because we know all skin folk ain't kinfolk. But the problem is where people hold on to their confirmation bias, their beliefs, their their feelings, their side, their narrative. And I think even like Ye called it out, Kanye West called it out, demonic blocks, where you can kind of show them, lay out the facts right in front of them, but they are so psyop into believing their story, their hero's journey, that none of that applies. So they're gonna always vote Democrat, vote Republican. They're gonna be held to their truth, that tribalism, to where you could lay out the facts like, hey, quit being loyal to just one group, just to one side, and here are the facts. We are on the same team, whether you realize it or not. But you think I'm an enemy, but I'm just trying to show you the truth. And you have to let the facts lead the way and not lead with your feelings or with your side. And I think a lot of people just can't break through it. They got the CNN brain, the MSNBC brain, even the Fox News brain. So that's all I really got to say. There's so much more we can get into, but like I said, we want to at least get to the Twitter files and also Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX, which has the FTX scandal is in line with this as well. I mean, they're basically money laundering,
Man,
laundering the money through Ukraine for the Democrats. So it all ties together, man. But that's all I got to say about this article, at least.
let me pull up that. You sent me the FTX article already?
Shit. All right, let me send it to you right now.
Well, I should be able to. I found one. So let me see if I can find. I don't know if it covers the money laundering specifically. Uh, but man, that is a convoluted situation. Let me look up that specifically, and then I'll get an article.
Okay.
Because that. So factcheck.org says bogus theory misinterprets FTX support for Ukraine. And so this is what you have to understand too. This is not the it's all these different groups are saying no, FTX didn't funnel money to Ukraine. I'm going to read a Fox News article because I'm going to trust that they have a better assessment of that than the other.
I do another one too, in case you need it, from Breitbart, and then I'll
But
be the different.
I might take the Breitbart article just because I know typically the more independent source has a better. But it's like one of those fact check or Snopes. The
Yep.
person who founded it admitted to just completely like making up information or either plagiarizing stuff. Like they just completely made it up or plagiarized it. Then they admitted to having some of their fact checkers. They admitted that it was just their opinion. And
I
so it's
call
just
fact.
like,
I call censorship
yeah,
rangers.
go for it.
Oh no, I was
You
just
call
saying
it
like
what?
I call fact checkers censorship rangers.
Oh well, that's Wait, let me. I got this Breitbart article. I want to keep that. I'll keep that, but I want to pull up this. I want to pull up this one from Fox because it breaks down how the FTX Ukraine situation. So I want to just cover that one right quick. I'll read that one. I'll pull up the Breitbart article and let you read that one.
No, let's go. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
So it says, what is the alleged connection between Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX, Democrats, and Ukraine? Bankman-Fried donated nearly $38 million to Democratic candidates. That should just mean him personally, not the organization. Former billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried, founder of cryptocurrency exchange company FTX, funneled millions of dollars to Democratic campaigns, becoming one of the party's largest donors, second only to George Soros. So even Fox News, uh, they they have some typo issues. They need an editor, and they're a big billion-dollar corporation. So I don't feel so bad about our two-man output. Bankman-Fried donated nearly $38 million during the midterm cycle, according to Federal Election Commission data. His company also reportedly set up a website, Aid for Ukraine, to raise funds for Ukrainians amid the ongoing war against Russia. The initiative was powered by the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, FTX, and Ukrainian web company Everstake. Cryptocurrency donations were sent to the National Bank of Ukraine. The 30-year-old crypto financier wrote on Twitter in early March he was, quote, excited and humbled to be working with the Ukrainian Ministry of Finance and others to support crypto donations to Ukraine, end quote. Last week, FTX filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy after a liquidity crisis at the company, and Bankman-Fried is estimated to have lost roughly $16 billion in a week. New York Post columnist Miranda Devine questioned Monday on, quote, Tucker Carlson tonight, end quote, why a country at war was, quote, dabbling with cryptocurrency, end quote. Quote, why on earth the American taxpayer is funneling tens of billions of dollars over to Ukraine so that they can fight Russia, and why on earth they would be involved. The Ukrainian government, with this now collapsed cryptocurrency exchange, we need to know, end quote. She told guest host Tulsi Gabbard. Quote, why on earth was a country at war dabbling with cryptocurrency, which everybody knows is shady, end quote, Devine asked. Devine added Bankman-Fried was in the, quote, bosom of the left, end quote, and, quote, indulging in all sorts of woke causes, end quote. Alex Bornyakov, Deputy Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, refuted claims the country used government funds to invest in FTX, which in turn donated to Democratic candidates, calling the theory, quote, nonsense, end quote, on Twitter. So here's, you can trust this Ukrainian guy. He's the most corrupt country in Europe. He's the finance minister. You can trust what he says. A fundraising crypto foundation, Aid for Ukraine, used FTX official to convert crypto donations into fiat in March. Ukraine's gov never invested any funds into FTX. The whole narrative that Ukraine allegedly invested in FTX, who donated money to Democrats, is nonsense, frankly. Bankman-Fried and his company are currently under investigation by Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission, according to Wall Street Journal. Editor's note, the report has been updated to clarify the amount of Bankman-Fried's estimated donations in the 2022 election cycle. So he donated $38 million in the 2022 election cycle. So that just shows you how much. And so just a couple things I want to bring up to clarify. The contention is that Ukraine received money from the U.S. federal government, and Ukraine used those funds to invest in Bankman-Fried and FTX, and that Bankman-Fried used those monies to donate to the Democratic Party. So that's the circle of confusion. That's the contention that is being refuted by factcheck.org, by Snopes, by USA Today, and all of them. Now, they can say what they want to say, but the investigation ain't over with, because these are the same people who said Hunter's laptop was false. These are the same people who said that the Trump P-tape was real. These are the same people who said that the Russians hacked the 2016 election. So, I mean, like the expression is, I can't trust you as far as I can throw you. So, I mean, that's doubly for the USA Today.
Excuse my current bias due to your previous track record, that I don't just
Exactly. And I mean, of course, the Ministry of Finance and Ukraine, the most corrupt country in Europe, is not going to admit to doing some shady shit. You know what I'm saying? Pardon me, your word don't carry no weight.
Deny, deflect. Or I think it's like.
So I'll pull up that second article and you can read it if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure.
But again, the
Mhm.
overall theme is you have to learn to think for yourself. You cannot continue to allow these mainstream corporations, these elite mouthpieces, right? Because that's all they are, the
Mhm.
mouthpieces for the elite. You can't allow them to continue to tell you what the truth is. You can't allow them to continue to dictate what you know to be correct or true based on your own evidence and research. You have to trust the evidence and research and
Mhm.
context, right? You have to be able to look at history and make an adequate determination about what makes sense and what doesn't.
No, that's an excellent point. Just before I read into this article, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like whether you're Democrat, whether you're Republican, you just can't be on. I'm just going to listen to this person because they sound good, or well, I have a family with kids. I have no time to do my own research. Like you can't carve out an hour on a Saturday or Sunday just to kind of instead of getting the sound bite, far left, far right. You have to learn to be, like you said, your own critical thinker, and I think that would, if that's anything, it's not about proving this side right or wrong. Just look at all three sides, then make a decision. Don't be all Democrat, don't be all Republican. And I think if more people just had that mentality instead of just getting pandered to what just sort of gives them their validation, I think we'd be in a much better spot. Because even the people that validate you, make you feel good, say all the right things that make you reaffirm your confirmation bias, they don't have your best interest at heart. They're just peddling influence. They're just peddling you to think a certain way to give them more influence. And don't allow any of these journalists, whether Fox News, CNN, or MSNBC, keep you from looking at both sides. But anyway, so Sam Bank, this is from Breitbart article. Sam Bankman-Fried cronies plead guilty to federal charges related to FTX. All right, so if you can continue scrolling down here. All right, so Gary Wayne, co-founder of FTX, and uh, Caroline Ellison, former CEO of Sam Bankman-Fried Alameda Research, that both pleaded guilty to federal offenses in the Southern District of New York, according to the statement released by U.S. Attorney Damian Williams this week. CNBC reports uh, that oh yeah, that's the same article. Oh no, sorry. Both the bankrupt FTX and its associates, hedge fund Alameda Research, are the brainchild of Democrat super donor Sam Bankman-Fried. A little ugly yellow Balenciaga. Oh, we got a hit on Balenciaga too. Shit. Before we wrap up,
Man,
uh,
man.
burn Balenciaga. Gary Wang had admitted to participating in a conspiracy to commit wire fraud, committing wire fraud, conspiring to commit commodities fraud, and conspiring to commit securities fraud. Caroline Ellison has pleaded guilty to 2 counts of wire transfers, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to commit committees fraud, securities fraud, money laundering. Wang and Ellison both entered guilty pleas on federal charges on Monday, according to the U.S. Attorney in Southern District of New York. Damian Williams. These charges were announced on Monday, the same day FTX CEO Bankman-Fried was set to travel to the Bahamas and face federal criminal charges from the same prosecutors, but was delayed after court hearing in Bahamas. In a pre-recorded message, Williams stated, as I said, as of last week, the investigation is very much ongoing. I also have last week's announcements would not be our last. And let me be clear once again, neither is today's. Bankman-Fried was taken into custody in the Bahamas last week after being indicted in the Southern District of New York. He has spent the last few days involved in court proceedings related to his potential eradication, potential extradition to the United States.
You had that right. He gonna get Epstein.
Yep, his ass, little squirrely looking fucking dweeb. At the same time, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and Securities and Exchange Commission have filed civil complaints against Banks, Freeds, Ellison's, and Wang. The SEC claimed that the crypto executives were involved in a multi-year scheme to. You got to scroll down again. To defraud equity investors. Defraud equity investors in FTX, the crypto trading platform co-founded by Sam Bankman-Fried. CFTC's complaint charges Ellison with fraud and material misrepresentation, connection with the sale of digital asset commodities and interstate commerce, and charges Wang with fraud in connection with the sale of digital asset commodities and interstate. Gary Wang and Caroline Ellison have both admitted to the allegations made against them. According to the statement of the CFTC, the SEC complaint specifically mentions Ellison involvement in manipulating FTT, a self-issued token of FTX, to increase Alameda Research available collateral for lending. All right. Well, one thing I'm gonna touch on is not only the whole, from a bigger macro standpoint, the globalists, the elites, they accomplish two things. Not only getting money to all their friends in Washington, Democrats and Ukraine, but also, like I mentioned before, this now gives them the power for their bank friends to come in and officially do their government overreach regulation and to undecentralize crypto. So we're going to get the Fed coin dropping sooner or later, if not next year, definitely by the election 2024, and it's going to ease in this sort of I think CBDC, like current digital currency passport.
Yeah, central
Uh,
bank
yeah. So this is
central bank digital currencies.
this is basically the catalyst they need. Not only they get away with the money, they win two times. They get the money to all their friends, but now they're going to be ushering in the CBDC, and and Sam Bankman-Fried, he's just the clueless guy caught in the middle. Obviously, he was in on it to some point, but I think he really honestly thought he would just be let into the club. He thought he was in the club. His parents obviously had the connections, but I just, he didn't realize he would become the fall guy. And I think eventually, I think right now he's in custody in New York as we're recording this, but they're going to eventually get to him. There's going to come to a point. I don't know where we're at with Ghislaine Maxwell, but she probably ain't got too much longer either. But these are loose ends. He is a loose end. And, not only do they get their money, but they're also going to use this to usher in the Fed coin. So that's why those are my initial thoughts. But Conspiracy Brother, if you had anything else to add into that.
Well, you know, I'll say it's interesting that Epstein, Bernie Madoff, Bankman Fried, a lot of these people come from a certain background that I'm not going to say.
Yep.
I'll let you all who are listening draw your own conclusions.
Yeah.
Um,
Fed or
it's just
otherwise.
peculiar. It's peculiar in a way that, like Dave Chappelle said,
Yeah.
it's crazy to say out loud, but it's not crazy to think. But yeah, I think when you look at the central bank currencies that they're trying to roll out, the central bank digital currencies, and how they're going to try to move forward with, what do they call it? I'm drawing a blank on it. Social credit scores and limited movement, trying to impose restrictions on people, the lockdowns, and all this different stuff. The way the government has already propagandized its own citizenship, legally now because of the amendment of the Smith-Mundt Act. It's just, you wonder how a guy like this is allowed to make this type of money in this kind of way. You know what I mean? How does a person make this kind of money this type of way? And because technically, cryptocurrencies are illegal.
Mm-hmm.
They're illegal because unless you're paying taxes on them, it's essentially money laundering. That's what they're all for. And I'm not saying this guy isn't paying taxes, but like that's the whole thing with Bitcoin. That's the crypto part of cryptocurrency has to do with encryption.
Mm-hmm.
And the encryption part comes from the fact that you don't know, you can't trace ownership from possession. So
Mm.
when you have a Bitcoin wallet, your Bitcoin wallet has an address that is independent of your account. So that's why if you lose your Bitcoin wallet address and you have coins in there,
Shit out of luck.
you'll lose your access to those coins forever because it's encrypted on your account end and your wallet end. That's the crypto part. It's not just some, funny or sci-fi term that people use. It actually has a purpose. And so it's just peculiar to me that you see these tentacles around the establishment is allowing these types of people to exist. He's basically, for all intents and purposes, uh, uh, um, a George Soros of another kind, right? Um, Maybe he was more tailor made in the types of policies and things he pushed. But I mean, you look at the ways in which, in public policy, you look at the bathroom bills, the transgender stuff. There was an article I posted, maybe I forgot to post it, but it showed the increase in gender clinics around the country, the increase in Medicaid covered gender transition procedures. And all this stuff isn't a coincidence. You're
Mm-hmm.
making tens of thousands of dollars from surgeries, from having to prescribe people medications, hormones for the rest of their lives. And so, you know, you see an increase now in people being um, given these as remedies for mental, what I believe is mental anguish. Uh, and I think they're all connected. It's social engineering, and we need to be aware of it. As much as I'm disheartened by uh, everybody's ability to kind of break free from it, we need to try to figure out a way to break free from it and fight back. Fight back against these oppressive forces who would like to control us uh, in a way that is antithetical to the American ideal of individual freedom, liberty. And completely. I'm not going to bring up the whole kind of hypocritical nature of that because it's not that. That's not my point of bringing it up. But you understand, like that's the American tradition is individual freedom and liberty and justice, and the right to self determination. And all this stuff flies in the face of that. All these different uh, elites controlling our economy, controlling our daily lives, controlling our government, controlling us as individuals. That is antithetical to that. And we need to do something about it.
Mm. Couldn't have put it any better, bro. I got nothing else to say. Um, yeah, it's just all part of the larger plan. You know, Fed coin, social credit score. They're going to slowly nudge between now and I'd say the 2024 election. You're going to have people cheering for a Fed coin. You're going to have people cheering for the social credit score. You mean I could earn an extra $50 through my new Fed coin if I snitch on Kathy, if I see any suspicious behavior, if I see anything on Facebook or online that I consider dangerous that offends me? I could report that and get an extra 3 points, 3% cash back. So you're going to slowly see the nudging and normalization, just how I was seeing the normalization of pedophilia and, a lot of these pedos hiding behind the alphabet mob. Just how we're normalizing that, you're going to people slowly start to normalize and accept the Fed coin social credit score. So yeah, we can get to the other articles. I'm not sure how many we got left. We definitely want to probably hit on Twitter files and Balenciaga. I know Harry Styles got caught up in some pedo ad as well. But if we have any other articles, we could do those too. But I definitely want to make sure, we're getting toward 2 hours. We could.
Yeah. Well, I can pull up the Twitter files because that's something that I'm particularly
Yeah.
interested in.
And then,
And
and then
so
I sent
we'll
you
look
the,
at.
then I sent you the two Balenciaga articles. One includes Harry Styles, so we can definitely knock that out right after Twitter files.
Okay. So This is going to be covering Twitter Files 8,
Mm-hmm.
which concerns the Pentagon and Twitter and how they were engaged in psyops.
Surprise, surprise. Only been
Yeah.
telling you shit for the last 2-3 years.
So this is from Li Feng. Twitter Files Part 8, How Twitter Quietly Aided the Pentagon's Covert Online PSYOP Campaign. So it says, despite promises to shut down covert state-run propaganda networks, Twitter docs show that the social media giant directly assisted the U.S. military's influence operations. And what you have to understand is, like, when I say I don't support oppressive forces, I don't support empires, I don't support authoritarianism, I mean that in totality. So I don't support our government doing it. I don't support China doing it. I don't support anybody doing it. Right. I don't support Russia invading Ukraine. However, I understand the context of the situation and that it wasn't just an unjustified or unprovoked interaction. Right.
Right.
I understand that there needs to be some counterweight to U.S. imperialism and U.S. hegemony. And so, you know, if it's China, if it's Russia, that is what it is. But in general, if we could all just live in a peaceful coexistence where freedom reigns supreme and individual liberty reigns supreme, I would support that overall. So it says Twitter has claimed for years that they make concerted efforts to detect and thwart government-backed platform manipulation. Here's Twitter testifying to Congress about its pledge to rapidly identify and shut down all state-backed covert information operations and deceptive propaganda. But behind the scenes, I won't read that. I mean, you can look up Li Feng. It's from December 20th to find this thread. But behind the scenes, Twitter gave approval and special protection to the U.S. military's online psychological influence ops, despite knowledge that Pentagon propaganda accounts use covert identities. Twitter did not suspend many for around 2 years or more. Some remain active. In 2017, a U.S. Central Command CENTCOM official sent Twitter a list of 52 Arab language accounts, quote, we use to amplify certain messages, end quote. The official asked for priority service for 6 accounts, verification for 1, and whitelist abilities for the others. Quote, whitelist, end quote. The same day CENTCOM sent the list, Twitter officials used a tool to grant special, quote, whitelist, end quote, tag that essentially provides verification status to the accounts without the blue check, meaning they were exempt from spam/abuse flags, more visible and likely to trend on hashtags. So this is after we've already found out that Twitter does have the capability to shadow ban people. And so their algorithm is influenced by human manipulation, and they can control what gets elevated or demoted, irrespective of how popular you are. We already know that the blue check was completely political and it was arbitrary how they implemented it, because it was either based on if a person was paying money or if they fit some kind of political agenda and they were somebody you've never heard of before. So it says the CENTCOM accounts on the list tweeted frequently about U.S. military priorities in the Middle East, including promoting anti-Iran messages, promotion of the Saudi Arabia-U.S.-backed war in Yemen, and, quote, accurate, end quote, U.S. drone strikes that claimed to only hit terrorists. Now, I've believe I posted a link before. I'll just pull this picture up just so we can see it. I don't speak Arabic. I don't think Conservative Brother does either. So I'm just pulling this up to show you what they look like. I remember reading an article that said that the U.S. military used drone strikes. I think it was when Obama was president, so 2016. And it said that they had drones, they used drones to hit the group in Afghanistan, and ended up they were all like pistachio farmers or something. It was like they just blasted some pistachio farmers. So I'll let you know that that wasn't accurate. They were not only hitting terrorists. How could you? Edward Snowden or Chelsea Manning, Bradley Manning, however you prefer. Chelsea Manning. Released a video showing that U.S. military was shooting like a camera crew or something in Afghanistan or Iraq or something. Like they're just shooting them in a helicopter. So, I mean, we know they weren't just killing terrorists. There's no way to know that from the air. CENTCOM then shifted strategies and deleted disclosures of ties to the Twitter accounts. The bios of the accounts changed to seemingly organic profiles. One bio read Euphrates Pulse. Another used an apparent deepfake profile pic and claimed to be a source of Iraqi opinion. One Twitter official who spoke to me said he feels deceived by the covert shift. Still, many emails throughout 2020 show that high-level Twitter executives were aware of DoD's vast network of fake accounts and covert propaganda and did not suspend the accounts. For example, Twitter lawyer Jim Baker mused in a July 2020 email about an upcoming DoD meeting that the Pentagon used, quote, poor tradecraft, end quote, in setting up its network, and were seeking strategies for not exposing the accounts that are, quote, linked to each other or to DoD or the USG, end quote. USG is U.S. government, DoD is Department of Defense. And tradecraft is it's a politically correct term, or it's legalese, it's jargon term for lying. Right.
All right.
So they use poor lying. That's what he's saying. Stacia Cardile, I don't know, another Twitter attorney, replied that the Pentagon wanted a SCIF and may want to retroactively classify its social media activities, quote, to obfuscate their activity in this space, and that they may represent an overclassification to avoid embarrassment, end quote. I don't know what SCIF is. Oh, let's see. So here's the email, or the email there. Jim, Angela, and I discussed attendance in this classified briefing. I don't know what the SCIFs are. So there it is. We'll have to go over all of these Twitter files one of these days, just trying to go over as many as we can, just because they are important. In several other 2020 emails, high-level Twitter executives / lawyers discussed the covert network and even recirculated the 2017 list from CENTCOM and shared another list of 157 undisclosed Pentagon accounts, again, mostly focused on Middle East military issues. In May 2020, Twitter's Lisa Roman emailed the DoD with two lists. One list was accounts, quote, previously provided to us, end quote, and another list Twitter detected. The accounts tweeted in Russian and Arabic on U.S. military issues in Syria / ISIS, and many also did not disclose Pentagon ties. Again, here's the tweet email. Many of these secretive U.S. military propaganda accounts, despite detection by Twitter as late as 2020, but potentially earlier, continued tweeting through this year, some not suspended until May 2022 or later, according to records I reviewed. In August 2022, a Stanford Internet Observatory report exposed a U.S. military covert propaganda network on Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and other apps using fake news portals and deepfake images and memes against U.S. foreign adversaries. So this is from Graphica. Public assets from Graphica. I'm just pulling it so everybody can see it, so it can be seen. Unheard. What is this going to be? Unheard voices. Stanford Observatory Graphica. Unheard voice, evaluating 5 years of pro-Western covert influence operations. And the crazy thing is they post all this stuff. Like, you got to find it. You do have to dig to find it. But they post it. Methodology and overview. Central Asia, Iran, Afghanistan, Middle East. You know what I'm saying? They post it. In July and August 2022, Twitter and Meta removed 2 overlapping sets of accounts for violating their platform's terms of service. Twitter and said the accounts fell foul of its policies and quote, platform manipulation and spam, while Meta said the assets on his platform and engaged in, quote, coordinated and authentic behavior, end quote. After taking down the assets, both platforms provided portions of the activity to Graphica and the Stanford Internet Observatory for further analysis. So, that's something you can download for later. The U.S. propaganda network relentlessly pushed narratives against Russia, China, and other foreign countries. They accused Iran of quote, threatening Iraq's water security and flooding the country with crystal meth, end quote, and of harvesting the organs of Afghan refugees. The Stanford report did not identify all the accounts in the network, but one they did name was the exact same Twitter account Sitcom asked for whitelist privileges in the 2017 email. I verified via Twitter's internal tools the account used an AI-created deepfake image. You remember when all the deepfake stuff was getting real popular? I mean, this is the thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
With all this new technology, it's great, right? It is fun. It's interesting. It's novel. You have an opportunity to engage in some new stuff with the cryptocurrency. It's cool. It's fun. You feel like the future is really finally here. But you have to understand that all these technologies, unless we are able to really understand how they're used, unless we're properly trained, we need to be cautious about engaging with them because they can really cause us problems long term.
Very, very much so. And
Um,
oh, you keep going.
let's see how many it is on. Okay, so let's see. Ooh. How many is this? Because these are usually pretty long.
I mean, I can give you some of my thoughts.
Yeah,
Obviously,
so it only goes to 21, but yeah, you can give me some thoughts.
yeah.
It goes
And
to 21.
I'm just so conflicted because on one end, I commend Elon Musk, who obviously he has his transgenderism, he has his ties to Neuralink. He's a part of the club, but kind of like maybe a kind of like an unpredictable member, if you will. But at the same time, I think also part of him knew that as he was building these companies and he saw where it was going, he saw Twitter as something like, damn, like at my level, I'm really the only one that could maybe help drain the swamp, if you will, maybe pick up where Trump left off. So I think these Twitter files are, very, very. This is what I'm looking for is, obviously they're very telling. Obviously, a lot of the stuff we already knew. This is finally the confirmation we needed. I think Elon needs to just release them all. I know he's trying to do this little slow release every Friday, chill their files. I feel like they're going to end up shutting the fucking website down. So he needs to hurry up and just release them. Now, on the other end of it, it's just crazy how 1984 all this is. And this should really disturb people on the right or the left. We've been saying it forever. Yeah, it's been censoring more people on the right or conservative. But now journalists and everybody on the left's freaking out because Elon, we're going to get to journalists getting, doxxed, journalists doxing Elon's jet and threatening his son, and a lot of that unfortunately falls to this people who feel like the rules don't apply to them. And it goes to this sort of this oligarchy, this big tech rulers, if you will, who've been having the lay of the land the past 10 to 15 years. And then when Elon comes in and says, you know what, there needs to be a balance restored, this is what you get. You get the Twitter files. But what's sad about this is that this should be something where anybody, no matter where you stand on the political spectrum, when you see these Twitter files, you see all this evidence, whether you're far left or far right, you should say, this is crazy. This is wrong. This is dangerous. But instead, you have people on the far right who are just kind of blindly praising Elon, but they don't see all the other shit that Elon could potentially do down the road with Neuralink and transgenderism and a lot of the other questionable kind of global things. Then you got people on the far left who don't see any of that, and they're just all butthurt that all of a sudden they're on the wrong side of censorship now, and Elon's the devil, but you were just dick riding him for owning a Tesla. So it's just very convoluted and complex. I think that this PSYOP operation specifically just shows that what we knew all along, that the DOJ, once again, government in bed with big tech, And that is corporatism for you. That is the very fascism that the leftists claim that, oh my God, anything that's racist or misogynist or I disagree with, you're a fascist. This is fascism. Twitter files showing it right in your face. This is fascism. Yet people have these demonic blocks or they can't see past it of what it really is. This should frighten you no matter where you stand on politically. And it just seems like it's only really the message is only going to get through to one side, you know. So that's kind of my long point on that. I'm excited. I'm glad this stuff's finally coming out along with the CIA on JFK. You know, we gotta, you know, maybe we could maybe touch on that while we're here. But yeah, it only confirms what I've known all, like many of us knew all along. You know, and I'm thankful for them releasing it. You know?
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of what you were saying because ultimately, um, you still have to be cautious of the motives of anybody who's releasing this information and why they might be doing it and what, like we talked about with the whole objective of him to make Twitter some type of everywhere app or everything app. So I mean, like, there isn't really necessarily a good guy in this situation. There might be better.
Mm-hmm.
There might be bad and better, but there might not be a good guy here, unfortunately. And so it is what it is. You know what I mean? I'm one of those people. I do like information, and so I'm grateful that what we were all believing to be the case has been proven to be the case objectively.
Surprise. Yep.
Yeah.
So I got a few articles. Basically, I don't know what. Do we have any articles specifically left? I just had a few left. I think we should maybe not quit. You
Well, I wanted to finish this.
okay? Yeah.
I wanted to finish this. It's like 3 more tweets.
Okay. Cool.
But or 4 more tweets. But let me see. It was one other thing I was going to bring up. You just talked about it and made me remember, but I have to think about it again. In subsequent reporting, Twitter was cast as an unbiased hero for removing, quote, a network of fake user accounts promoting pro-Western policy positions, end quote. Media covering the story described Twitter as evenly applying its policies and proactive in suspending the DoD network. The reality is much more murky. Twitter actively assisted CENTCOM's network going back to 2017 and as late as 2020. Knew these accounts were covert, designed to deceive, to manipulate the discourse, a violation of Twitter's policies and promises. They waited years to suspend. Twitter's comms teams was closely in touch with reporters working to minimize Twitter's role. When WAPost reported on the scandal, Twitter officials congratulated each other because a story didn't mention any Twitter employee and focused largely on the Pentagon. And there's images of the tweets, of the emails. The conduct of the U.S. military's covert network stands in stark contrast with how Twitter has boasted about rapidly identifying and taking down covert accounts tied to state-backed influence operations, including Thailand, Russia, Venezuela, and others since 2016. Here is my reported piece with more detail. I was given access to Twitter for a few days. I signed, agreed to nothing. Twitter had no input into anything I did or wrote. The searches were carried out by a Twitter attorney, so what I saw could be limited. So this is The Intercept. If you want details about how I go about my reporting, a little more about myself, and further documentation and discussion, I just started a Substack. So you can sign up for the Substack to get more information. Looking at the JFK assassination, I think it was what it was. I had an article there from The Intercept, and it broke down.
Yeah, let's pivot into that. I shared a JFK article too, but we could go into that one. Birds.
Okay. But you have people who would like to believe that it's just a few bad apples. That's what people like to believe. And even Ryan Grimm, who wrote that article, he wrote the article in The Intercept. He wrote the article in The Intercept that I used. he wrote the article in The Intercept that I used. He says that um, a lot of people think when you hear, oh, these were rogue agents in the CIA, that means that they were like low level guys who were going against orders. And he says you could be a rogue agent and still be the director of the CIA. You know, rogue just means that your behavior, he said, that a rogue agent still may be doing things that obviously he said contradicts the president. If the president is supposedly head of government, theoretically, as a CIA agent, you should be under the president. But if you're assassinating the president, then you're a rogue agent. That doesn't mean everybody in the CIA supports this.
Make it make sense.
This decision. So, and I think that's important to understand that you can still have the rogue agent be the head of the organization. It doesn't have to be some low-level guy.
Right. But of course, that's just another one of their angles.
Lee Harvey Oswald, the CIA. Right. Lee Harvey Oswald, the CIA, and LSD. New clues in newly declassified documents. An unredacted memo adds depth to our understanding of the CIA's response to allegations Oswald worked with the spy agency. So the Biden administration declassified a new clue last week to the relationship between Lee Harvey Oswald and the Central Intelligence Agency. Among the intersections between Oswald and the CIA, his time as a young Marine at the Atsugi Naval Air Facility in Japan in 1957 is high among them. Atsugi was a launching pad for U-2 spy flights over the Soviet Union and was also a hub of the CIA's research into psychedelic drugs. A CIA memo titled Truth, Drugs, and Interrogation revealed the agency practice of dosing agents who were marked for dangerous overseas missions. Wrote David Talbot in, quote, The Devil's Chessboard, end quote. His 2015 biography of former CIA Director Allen Dulles was the brother of Secretary of State under Dwight Eisenhower, John Foster Dulles, who I believe the airport in Washington, D.C. is named after, the one in, well, not national, but Dulles Airport, obviously. Talbot's exploration of the link ended there. Quote, some chroniclers of Oswald's life have suggested that he was one of the young Marines on whom the CIA performed its acid test, end quote. A new document released in full last week relates directly to Oswald's time at Atsugi, revealing details about the CIA's response to testimony from a former agency accountant that the spy service had employed Oswald, who went on to be a gunman in the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. Now, it's interesting that he says a gunman and not the gunman, because a gunman implies that there is more than one, in my mind, at least how I understand it. But maybe Ryan Grimm is throwing a bone to us JFK through truthers. The CIA's role in Kennedy's assassination remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of American history. A majority of Americans believe the president was killed as part of a conspiracy that went beyond Oswald, and roughly a third believe the CIA or elements within the CIA had a hand in it. The main theory posits the assassination as a response to Kennedy's firing of Dulles, a cloak and dagger power broker, following the failed CIA Bay of Pigs operation to unseat Fidel Castro's communist government in Cuba. Some believers of the theory also point to evidence Kennedy was souring on the Vietnam War or militarism in general. If Dulles did orchestrate a coup against Kennedy, it would be far from his first. A memorandum from 1978 reports that a finance clerk with the CIA, James Wolcott Jr., had informed a White House panel exploring the assassination that, quote, the CIA hired Lee Harvey Oswald when Oswald served in Atsugi, end quote. The memo goes on to cast doubt on Wolcott's claim, noting that he arrived in Tokyo in 1960 after Oswald had left the base, suggesting that Wolcott's claim is based on, quote, secondhand information, end quote, or secondhand information, which is interesting because the government used to not value secondhand information, even when they weren't criminal proceedings. But now you see with the case of the January 6th court. Secondhand information is firsthand information.
Mm-hmm.
A version of the document was declassified by the Trump administration in 2017, though it redacted a portion of a note that runs along the bottom of it. That redaction obscured the name of a CIA official, Dan Nisher, who fielded requests from congressional investigators in the 70s and searched Oswald's files. Jefferson Morley, editor of the Substack newsletter JFK Facts, said that inconsequential lifting of such redactions seems to be common in the latest document release, allowing the government to claim it is releasing thousands of documents while most had largely already been in the public domain. The memo, written to a person identified as JHW, explains that CIA official rushed home, inherited the so-called Oswald files, but that he has assured me the agency had no contact with Oswald, end quote. The memo says that quote, contrary records, end quote, might be in, quote, EA, end quote, a likely reference to the CIA's East Asia desk, and that they would be searched for and checked if found, end quote. Quote, he is after it, end quote. The memo says of Holmes, who became legendary for his now declassified CIA archive on the assassination. The JFK files include a number of personnel records connected to Wilcott, whose testimony before the House committee in the late 70s made news at the time. Oswald's next few years make much more sense with a connection to the CIA than without them. After studying Russian while in the military, perhaps trained at the Army Language School in Monterey, California, according to Talbot, sourcing the claim to the Warren Commission Chief Counsel J. Lee Rankin, Oswald was discharged with a false claim of his mother's ill health. Completely broke, with only $203 in his bank account, he took a boat to England 9 days after his discharge. Then, according to his wife, Oswald took a military transport flight to Finland, staying at two of the nicest hotels in Helsinki. Oswald then took an overnight train from Helsinki to Moscow. Once there, he presented himself at the U.S. Embassy to announce he'd become a defector. Embassy staff later recalled that his defection speech sounded odd and rehearsed. He spent 2.5 years in the Soviet Union and then, just as curiously as he defected, returned home to the United States. If the series of moves from the discharge to the flight to the defection to the return were made at the behest of the CIA, they make sense, with Oswald playing some type of role in the inscrutable world of spycraft. Absent an intelligence link, the tick-tock of Oswald's post-military years would be situated somewhere between extraordinarily implausible to impossible to pull off. The CIA is known to have explored creative uses of psychedelics, and Dulles was specifically aware of these activities, even proposing some of the uses. On March 2, 1960, according to a classified CIA report included in last week's document release, the CIA director briefed Richard Nixon, then vice president, on a proposal to deal with Fidel Castro in Cuba. The report, which appears to be another version of a previously declassified document, included for economic sabotage of cane production and interference with oil deliveries. A more innovative idea presented in the briefing, according to the CIA, appears to be a reference to dosing Castro with LSD, which the agency was at the time experimenting with. Nixon was told that the agency had a drug which, if placed in Castro's food, would make him behave in such an irrational manner that a public appearance could have very damaging results to him. The CIA's claim to have no contact with Oswald is undercut by the fact that George de Mohrenschildt, I don't know who that is, a CIA asset, became close friends with Oswald in the months before the assassination. That spring, de Mohrenschildt traveled to New York, Philadelphia, and Washington. According to the documents found in the newly declassified files, at the same time as his trip, the CIA's Domestic Operations Division ran a search on de Mohrenschildt's, quote, exact reason unknown, end quote, according to two documents created by a CIA analyst included in last week's declassification. So let's see, I'm almost finished. So let me finish this up. I thought I had more. Let's see. I'll finish this up. Let's see. Let's see. The covert arm of the division was run at the time by E. Howard Hunt, a black ops specialist who confessed later in life to learning ahead of time of a conspiracy to assassinate Kennedy that involved high-level figures in the CIA. Quote, it is interesting that Allen's interest in DeMorn Schultz coincided with the earlier portion of this trip, end quote. The memo concludes, referring to Gail Allen, a case officer with the CIA's Domestic Operations Division at the time. And the information would suggest that possibly Allen and DeMorn Schultz were possibly in the same environment in Washington, D.C., circa 26 April 1963, end quote. In the wake of the latest document release, which also withheld countless additional documents, Fox News host Tucker Carlson reported that a source who reviewed the undisclosed records said they included evidence of CIA involvement in the assassination. Carlson said that he had invited his friend, Mike Pompeo, the former CIA director, who also withheld crucial documents, on his show to respond. Quote, though he rarely turns down a televised interview, he refused to come, end quote. Carlson said, quote, we hope he will reconsider, end quote. So that's the end of that. There's another article that we can check out later that goes into that goes into what we found in the JFK files, also by Ryan. I thought it was by Ryan Grimm, but maybe not. And it breaks down some of the information specifically found in the, but I guess the transcript's not out yet, so you have to listen to, that because the transcript's not available yet. So that's what I've got for that.
Yeah, and great breakdown, man. I think that really kind of shed a light and gave enough of a good Cliff Note version of what we all kind of expected all along. So, I mean, I'm not gonna. I think just for the sake of time, we could probably get into last articles I sent you was the journalist doxing Elon's jet, and then we could just end with, like, since it's kind of related to the Twitter files, and we could just end on the Balenciaga gate. But my final thoughts on the JFK thing is, from like a bigger macro standpoint, as you know, is that at the end of the day, Kennedy was really just trying to fight against this establishment, this military industrial complex that he knew way back then. And I think really it kind of started in the 1910s. President Woodrow Wilson, he worked with the banks and established, I think, the IRS. I think 1912, 1913. That's really where I feel like the oligarchy, the sort of taking over this country started. Because then you got a lot of the millionaires on the Titanic who were opposed to the central bank. They sink the Titanic. That kind of kicked off, Woodrow Wilson, IRS, 1913. So Kennedy already knew about the 50 years of corruption of where America was going. And, this only this pretty much just validates what he was trying to stop, and a lot of his Kennedy's talking points, about freedom, get rid of the big government. He would be a Republican today, but he was a Democrat who was calling it out. So that's why we get so caught up on these Democrat and Republican titles, where really Kennedy was truly a conservative in spirit. So we can't get caught up on team Democrat, team Republican. It's all about those principles. And Kennedy carried those same principles and unfortunately got him killed trying to stand up and fight against it. So all I got to say, just from a larger standpoint, I'm not like deep in the rabbit hole of everything JFK. I do believe obviously the CIA, the government had a hand in killing him. I'm just not. I haven't watched the JFK Oliver Stone film. I haven't sat through all the videos and whatnot. But I'm on the same page. I'm picking up what you're putting down, and once again, just goes to show that, basically, Kennedy is just anyone that steps out of line. This could be Kennedy, Julian Assange, Donald Trump, anyone that steps out of line that's not locked up with the narrative, with the big machine. You're gonna get taken care of, and that JFK file just only validates what we knew. So moving forward,
and I wanted to hit some things you brought up. So Woodrow Wilson, he created the Federal Reserve, or he signed the legislation. If you read the book, it's called The Beast of Jekyll Island. I haven't read it yet, but it breaks down how the central bank was founded. He's the guy behind that. He's a terrible guy, Woodrow Wilson. Actually, in my opinion, he's the worst president that we've had that did not own people.
A revolt racist Democrat as well. Very,
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. And then as far as JFK, as far as the, I've actually just recently heard this theory about the Titanic, that the Titanic never sank, and that the ship that sank was called the Olympic or something.
Mm.
and they
I want
just changed the
right.
names on them because the
Mm.
other ship was so old, and
Mm.
they like basically did an insurance claim on it. But
Mm.
that's a different story.
Right.
And yeah, I mean Kennedy, Kennedy, yeah, he's got that speech about breaking up the power structure and throwing them to the wind. And so, I mean, I think a lot of it had to do with how much money and wealth his family had. It made it more difficult for him to be corrupted in the same way that a lot of other politicians had been or are. Because even up to now, they say the Kennedy family was the richest political family in American history, even more money than Trump.
Same
And
with
so I think that,
Teddy Roosevelt. Just how they come after
yeah,
Trump, they came after Kennedy. Teddy Roosevelt was hated by the media. He was going after a lot of the corrupt same patterns throughout history. And you put the dots on like the people they come after who they demonize, you find out they're trying to fight the very establishment that everybody else is dick riding. But yeah, I just want to make that one point.
okay. So here's that article. Should be up now.
All right, you want me to read it?
Yeah, you can read it.
All right, cool. So Elon Musk defends banning journalists. You docs, you get suspended. All right, so this was a big story, obviously, that unveiled in the past couple of weeks. Obviously, with the opening up of Twitter files and a lot of this truth coming out, just simply evidence, the left can't take it. So they decided to just, for them, anything they disagree with is violence. Oh my God, this dangerous free speech. This is misinformation. Twitter's a hellscape when we're just releasing fucking files, and just getting the truth out to make your own decision. So journalists decided to take it in their own hands. So you got Twitter CEO Elon Musk defends his decision to ban several prominent technology reporters from the platform. Yeah, exactly. That's who they are. Prominent technology reporters. More so propagandists, basically, from the platform on Thursday night, claiming that they violated Twitter's policies on doxing. You dox, you get suspended. Musk said on Twitter Spaces conversation in the story, which is a great clip, by the way. I listened to part of it. Doxing is the act of sharing information like addresses, phone numbers, and emails online in an attempt to allow others to harass the individuals. The billionaire abruptly suspended the account of reporters in the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, other outlets Thursday night that had covered Musk's recent dispute with Jack Sweeney, creator of Elon Jet. Sweeney, who created the Twitter account that tracked the movements of Musk's private jet, had his account suspended on Wednesday, despite previous assurances from Musk that he would not be banned. Musk's suspension spree on Thursday included the Times' Ryan Mack, the Post Drew Harwell, CNN's Donnie Sullivan, and Intercept's Micah Lee, and Mashable's Matt Binder, and independent journalist Aaron Rupar and Tony Webster. Political commentator Keith Olbermann, that prick, also had clearly you can hear my bias, right? Uh, uh, I didn't catch that last sentence. Uh, Oberman, Keith Olbermann. All right, Keith Olbermann also had his account suspended. Same doxing rules apply to journalists as to everyone else. And let me just stop right there, because once again, these journalists are having such a rude awakening. And we can kind of also talk about Taylor Loren. She got suspended as well, and they're just so shocked that the rules all of a sudden apply to them. They basked in their glory for 5, 10 years, and they just openly welcome censorship and any dissenting voices from the narrative. So now, like we were telling people, yeah, it's fun, you're on that side, but eventually the tables will turn on you. And all these journalists in their woke bubbles that feel like I'm just above the peasants, they're just so shocked it's happening to them. But once again, Musk said in a tweet on Thursday night, later adding, criticizing me all day is totally fine, but doxing my real time location and endangering my family is not, which is dope. And Jimmy Dore did a really great breakdown on this. I think between him and Tim Pool, they did the best sort of analysis on it, where they just broke down the facts. Journalists did dox, they did lie about it. But anyway, Washington executive editor Sally Busby said in a statement, the decision to spin Harwell and the other reporters directly undermines Elon claim he intends to run Twitter is a platform dedicated to free speech. So all of a sudden they're about free speech. Where 5 minutes ago, anything you disagree
That's
with,
and
um,
honestly, that's like the weirdest shit to me. Sorry to interrupt you,
yeah,
but
go
it's
right
like we have all this evidence that Twitter was like with the COVID shit, with like the political shit, just like banning people and blocking them.
ahead.
The New York Post is the longest continually operating newspaper in the country, and you banned them for posting a true story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to act like, oh well, Elon said like because Twitter never claimed to care about free speech before, it was cool, but now Elon said he cares about free speech, he has to be held to some ridiculous other standard. Like that's the part about it where it's like you're fucking disingenuous.
Yeah.
Nobody believes you. Nobody wants to hear you. I'm not going to listen to any of your reporting and take it credibly at face value. I'll listen to it and I'll look at it and I'll look at other sources and I'll look at context and I'll look at your history and use all those to make a determination. But like, how can you say? And they all say this shit, and it shows you too that a lot of those are bots. But they all say this shit like it's supposed to be compelling to people. It's not. It's not compelling.
The emperor
Pardon
has
my
no
interruption.
clothes. No, it's cool. No, I appreciate that tangent. The emperor has no clothes. They're being exposed for who they are. As I like to say, you told on yourself. And the journalists just can't take it. They can't take being on this other side because they've had it so good for so long. And I've never called for like banning banning AOC or Biden. Yeah, they say retarded shit. They say most of the leftist stuff. They say stuff that I don't have a problem like debating them or giving them my point. I'm never for. I feel like everybody. I feel like Twitter should just be a shit show hellscape. Anything from like stuff that may be very controversial, violent. Now, when you're giving away people's locations or you're calling to kill a group of people or harm a group of people, that's where I draw the line. But I feel like everybody should be back on Twitter. Everybody from doxing, obviously not. But yeah, keep Taylor Lorenz on, keep AOC on, keep Biden on, put Trump and Alex Jones back. Let it be a hellscape because that's free speech. But once you're calling the arms like come after this group of people at this location, blah blah blah. But in the article here, New York Times spokesman, this is gonna be a record, man. We about 2.5 hours. New York Times spokesman Charlie Statlander also denounced the suspensions as questionable and unfortunate, and they just hide behind all this fucking politician doublespeak. And once again, like I said, there's excellent. Those of you guys listening, Jimmy Dore, and Tim Pool probably do the best breakdowns on this. Screenshots on the screen. They call out the bullshit for what it is, and it's about facts. It's not about your side winning. It's about these are the facts, and these journalists are just flat out lying. While CNN called the decision concerning but not surprising, Musk suggested that the suspensions would not be permanent late Thursday night, opening up a poll to users, and I do agree with that. I don't think suspension should be permanent. You definitely got to like slap them around a bit. But if you do the shit again, yeah, it could be permanent or a 3-strike rule. Um, Opening up a poll, I think that was dumb though. Opening up the poll. Then again, I do think that Elon did that to really, once again, expose more of these bots that just arbitrarily just flooded the site with, yeah, you should step down from Twitter. So I feel like maybe he was doing that to just expose them again. 'Cause I don't think he should take a poll and actually follow through on it. Who are you to tell me to step down from my company? But anyway, the billionaire has previously used the same method to determine whether to reinstate other banned accounts, such as that as former President Trump, who I think is already let back on. But if I were him, I would just stick to True Social. Don't let you know, build your platform there. Don't go back to their game on Twitter, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, those are my initial thoughts. That's all I got. But obviously, journalists think they're above accountability. They spin it how they want to spin it. There's clear evidence that it was doxing, which I think is wrong, especially when you threaten the guy's kid. But that's all I got. Anything you want to add up on that one?
Uh, yeah. So the last thing is I think a lot of it, why he suspended those accounts, I think it sets a baseline so that you can't say you didn't know
Mm-hmm.
because they had engaged in doxing in the past. I know
Right.
Taylor Lorenz had even gone after what's that lives a TikTok, one of their family members, and actually went over their houses. So now it's like now you know, so you can have your account actually permanently banned eventually, whatever the policy will be, if it's multiple strikes or whatever.
Walk
But I
around,
mean,
walk around and
well,
find.
you know, just 6 months ago or whatever, when PNB Rock got shot at the
Yeah.
chicken and waffles place, everybody's talking about, hey, don't put your personal information out there. Don't share your real time location.
Right.
And then you have these fools sharing people's real time location. And the kid who's doing it, like the kid who's doing Elon Jet, he's saying he wants $50,000 or a Tesla. That's extortion. Like, that's legal.
Exactly. Suspend his ass for that. That's wrong.
He
Doxing.
should be in prison, right? Like, that's like a ransom, right? If I went and found Joe Biden's son's house and I posted it online and I said, hey, I'm a journalist and this is where Hunter Biden is every single day, all day long. But I'll stop if Joe Biden gives me a presidential medal of freedom and a new house. That's not extortion. That's not intimidation.
Exactly, but the rules don't apply to them. As much as I hate Biden or Hunter and all the people on the left, I'm not about to dox their location. I'm not going to call for violence. I'm going to call for accountability. I'm going to call you out on your shit, and there should be accountability to that. But yeah, we're not going to up and dox anybody or call for violence. But just for calling them out on stuff, it's violence to them. Any level of accountability is violence to them. But no, that's not. It's free speech. But yeah, doxing is. You know,
Yeah. So
I got on that.
it's an article I have that concerns this, but I won't. I don't know. I'll just show what it looks like. I don't know if I'll read the whole.
Just
I'm
go
not
real
going to read
quick.
it.
We get in with the Balenciaga gate. I just got two articles from that. One's with Harry Styles, featuring him, and he got caught up in stuff. Then we can kind of wrap it up. You know.
Okay.
But yeah, if you
So let
want to
me
show
just
that
pull this
article,
up.
real quick, that's cool.
I just want to show the title of it because we have been. This is a marathon, and hopefully this is informative for people. But we've a lot of stuff going on. We've missed a lot of it, and so we do want to keep you informed as best we can. And so this
Exactly.
is relating. EU threatens Elon Musk with sanctions after Twitter's suspension of journalists.
Mm,
So Vera Jourova, the European Commission's vice president for values and transparency, said the news of the arbitrary suspension of journalists on Twitter is worrying. Um,
oh, now they're
Twitter
worried.
abruptly suspended, and so I think um, this is before they realized that he had suspended them for doxing. And so this is a funny thing. Every time Elon does something, they always, like they did with Trump, they just get on it. Oh, he did this. He farted, and then it's like, well, you got to wait and figure out what happened, and you can get more context. And so
Right.
now I don't know if they can do that because, I mean, you did it for doxing. So, but
Right.
like, you didn't do this shit when the New York Post got suspended. You didn't do this when all different types of journalists got suspended just a year ago or 2 years ago. The EU wasn't doing this shit. And so this is the problem. This is what, when you look at, like, when they say racism is in the criminal justice system, like, which is one of the more common things you hear now. Even though
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of what you hear about is baseless and it's just used as a political chip. What
Right.
you find is, like, this is what people are talking about. You have these laws on the books, or you don't have them on the books, and you choose to feel outrage about these actions as it's applicable to you. Like we talked
Right.
about earlier with the crack shit.
When it's
If
served.
Mitch McConnell would have made a bill that said crack gets more time than powder coke, you would have protests at Mitch McConnell fucking house. But because it's Joe Biden and Obama made him the vice president, no big deal. Kamala Harris put all kind of people in prison unjustly. Black people, when I say people. But because she black, oh, don't worry about it. You know, it's just like Obama. Black wealth under Obama fell to levels
Mm-hmm.
that were lower. Black homeownership rates fell to levels lower than before desegregation.
Hmm.
You don't hear about it because he's black. But let that had been George Bush, right? Then it's a problem. Hillary Clinton
that
calling
it's
people
that it's that
predators.
blue privilege. I told you it's the blue wall of silence. Blue privilege. Democrats can fail up. You know.
Hillary Clinton called black people super predators. No big deal. And, or if anybody tried to make a big deal out of it, oh, well, Trump is worse. But when Melania Trump wore that shirt that said, you think we care, we really don't. Oh, is she talking about the kids at the border? Oh, look how insensitive she is. You trying to infer about something the woman is saying based on what her coat says that they sell. They sell this coat. It says it on every coat. When you have a woman here, same title, explicitly saying with her words, we don't care about how come they're this way, but they are super predators. Her words, not mine.
Mm.
And you
Yep.
want to act like, oh, well, that was just the times we was living in. I don't have I don't have time for that BS. I don't have time for the partisan garbage. I don't have time to fall into this kind of partisan bickering. We're in a recession right now. Food is going up, gas is going up, and everybody else in the elites sending money to Ukraine, making money off the back end, funneling money around, giving money to their friends, taking long vacations, all the people in power. Everybody else living good. I don't have time to buy into this BS. I don't. I don't. I don't. But I'll get the Balenciaga article. This is all I wanted to show. I didn't really, for the sake of this article, you can look it up, anybody who wants to see it. But, how do you act like the EU values fundamental right of media freedom? The EU is a joke.
It
The EU
is.
is worse than a joke because jokes are sometimes funny.
Good one. EU, yeah, they're just all they did. Like I said, they expose themselves. They tell on yourself. This just shows you just in bed with the oligarchy, big tech. You're locked up with the journalists, with big media, and yeah, the EU has been long compromised, long captured. So I could care less what they got to say because we all know they're just another arm of the establishment. All right, so all right, as we wrap up here,
I'm just gonna I got the two articles I'm pulling up just for the Balenciaga and Gucci. Um, I've never worn a Balenciaga or Gucci item. I've never shopped at either of the establishments because I can't afford it, and I don't like to dress like I can't afford it. I don't like to pretend. I have no reason. I like wearing Levi's. Levi's almost cost too much for me, so I can get away with Levi's though. But here's the first one.
yeah. For context, once again, obviously those guys been under a rock the past month or so. Thanksgiving weekend, Balenciaga obviously had a scandal involving a lot of this questionable child imagery that they had featuring a child holding a teddy bear that was dressed in BDSM. So obviously they've been going through that. It's long known about child pedophilia, and now they're just really trying to normalize it. But Harry Styles got wrapped up in this too, even though he's kind of part of the Hollywood sort of agenda. Shortly after Balenciaga controversy, Gucci faces backlash for a Harry Styles ad with a child mattress. So if you could scroll down for me, conspiracy brother. Um, this is couldn't be worse timing. As I don't know if they're just trying to test the waters at this point. They know what they're doing. They're very intentional about what they're doing. This is what a lot of these luxury houses, they're affiliated with the spirit cooking, with the whole child pedophilia. But it's like they're trying to test the waters. Oh, is it safe to go back in yet? Oh, not quite. All right, we were trying it. But recently, Balenciaga found himself in some hot water after a controversial ad campaign, which CBS describes, that were said to be promote uh, Balenciaga's plush bear bags were part of the brand's holiday campaign. The bears, however, are wearing BDSM gear and are held by children, appear to be no more than 5 years old. In one picture, it also shows a child surrounded by what appears to be wine and cocktail glasses. Now, Gucci's promotion of Ha 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 His line is under coming under similar fire thanks to a recent campaign featuring Harry Styles, the solo singer, posing with a toddler-sized mattress. It was first shared back in November, but has received increased attention recently. So I believe it's a photo. Uh, yeah, I might as well play the damn video, but
Here's a video, but let's see.
it's
And I
ugly.
mean,
Like,
like I
look,
talked about with this whole agenda of,
yeah,
the guys wearing dresses everywhere and stuff. I'm
yeah,
glad he's got on pants for a change,
yeah.
but why are you carrying a child sized bed mattress? Why?
Why?
Why is
Yeah,
it
you got,
called ha ha ha?
this is what they call karmic retribution. Is where once again the normalization of pedophilia. They're trying to get you. Kind of goes with that spirit cooking. Like we can tell you if we're telling you what we're doing, how we're corrupting your kids, grooming your kids. We're showing it to you who we are. So if you can't accept that, or if you just keep your head in the sand, you didn't get killed. I didn't kill you. You committed suicide. It kind of goes back to that tangent. Like as far as things that are coming, the globalist agenda. So that is basically in your face with it. All right, so back to the article. Gucci called the campaign a performance piece and said, play is at the very heart of the collection, which uses menswear as a tool for the avant garde. Harry Styles showcased the dream wardrobe defined by centric use of romantic accents, whimsical prints, vintage details, and expressive emotionality of the individual. Harry Styles enacts a theatrical piece where classism meets play, transforming the wardrobe into a liberated platform where the masculine can embrace vanity. What the fuck type of book? Anyway, shit's ugly. I would never wear it. I ain't gonna pay to, I don't say never, but they throw me some free. Somebody gives me some free Gucci. I'll maybe hold it in the closet and let it appreciate for a decade. But if it looks half decent, I might wear it around the house. That's about it. All right, but back to the article. Did you have something you want to conspiracy, brother?
Yeah, a lot of this too is centered, right? So when you look at fashion in general, right, the reason why it's so much, like if you ever go to a store and you see like the women's section, like you go into Macy's and the women's section is floors and the men's section is like maybe a floor, if that, a half a
Yeah,
floor. It's like the men's section is like half a floor in like the bedwear section or the
yeah.
bedding,
Ain't really shit.
because they can make all these different clothes for women. They try to make women, oh, you wear this for this and wear this for that. And what they're trying to do now is they're trying to do that for men too. They want men to wear all this different stuff too. Have
That
these different shoes for these different occasions, these different pants, these different shirts, these jackets, these outer garments, whatever. Men don't dress like that.
yeah.
The average everyday man doesn't dress like that. And so you're not going to be able to really build a long-term business with that model unless you transform men into wearing dresses and all this wild shit. Then you
This is
can get men to start doing that. You can start to capitalize on that.
that's a great point.
Until then, I just
Mhm.
wear blue jeans and sweatpants for the most part. I
Yeah.
wear shoes, and that's basically it. Wintertime I might wear sweaters and stuff. But summertime I'm wearing shorts or basketball shorts, and that's really it. I don't really have a lot of variation. You know what I'm saying? Even if I
Yeah.
was to dress up, if I wear a suit or a nice button-up shirt or a tie, it's just that, and that's it. There's not a lot of accessorizing. There's not a lot of, you know, I gotta have 5 and 6 and 7 different pairs of shoes to go with one outfit. That doesn't happen. So it's all a cannibalism of society, right? The elites are cannibalizing us.
hmm It's the demasculization and feminization of men in society, and they want to kind of push it up front and say, no, this is about liberation. He's so brave. He's breaking the rules. It's about being able to wear what you want, do what you want. Like no, at the end of the day, the fashion houses they can make money if they could brainwash, warp a big enough group of the male population to think I could wear anything, dress any type of way. Guess what? That's more profit for them. They can now, like you said, expand that men's section from half a corner to like half a floor or maybe the full floor. I don't think every man's going to fall for it, but yeah, you will have a brainwashed population that falls into the whole I can wear a dress, I can do whatever I want, blah blah blah. And guess what? It's not about them making you feel good or they're on your side or they're virtue signaling they're how open minded they are. It's like no, they're making a profit. They can now sell more clothes to one gender instead of just to two genders versus one. There's a political angle and profit from that. They're not just doing it out of the good of we're so virtuous and we're so open minded. They got their own agenda, a bottom line agenda too. Um, Back to the article, Harry Styles enacts a theatrical piece where classism meets play. Oh, I already wrote that part. Among those not pleased with the campaign is Alexandra Gucci Zanari, great granddaughter of the Gucci founder. She tweeted, Gucci was created to be the most elegant brand with the highest quality. The direction it seems to be taking now is concerning. The protection of children should always come first and not be laughed at. So I commend her for that, especially being the, Gucci great great granddaughter founder. I commend her for speaking out on that. And then you got, obviously other people speaking up. So you kind of scroll through there. We don't need to really read every tweet. But people are speaking out about it. And once again, not on top of the clothes just being ugly, I wouldn't ever wear it. People can have their own fashion sense, but people are kind of just falling for trends and they're not seeing the sort of insidious agenda underneath it. And that of course spills into Balenciaga. We can kind of end with that last article, or we could probably end with this one to be honest. I don't know if there's any new updates on the scandal, but I guess we could look at that last Balenciaga article, see what it says. But that's all I pretty much got.
Okay. If you want to look at the Balenciaga,
I think it's like maybe an article that dropped a few days ago. It may have a few updates, but I think
this
I
says
don't.
that the Gucci and Balenciaga are the same parent company, Caring.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think also the owner of the co-founder of Balenciaga, or I think the parent company, he is like the husband of the actress Salma Hayek, and they had this fucking company that sells child size sex dolls. It's sick. Yeah, so
Well, here's the
uh,
other one, but I mean, if you, it's up to you. But I mean, if not, we can kind of get out of it. But I mean, you look at this.
yeah, we can
You
end it
look how
here.
upset. Look how upset people was at Kanye West, and look how upset people was at Kyrie Irving. Look how quickly Nike moved and Adidas moved to drop these two guys. Look
Mm-hmm.
how quickly you saw the Bank of America or Chase Bank drop Kanye West when he said what he said, right? And here these companies are promoting. It appears to be pedophilia, which whether or not it's pedophilia, the issue is that when you appear to be promoting it, it's just as bad, right? Like if you appear to be promoting a bad act, it's just as bad as promoting it. There's no difference in that point. Whether you now there's a difference in doing it and not doing it. But in appearing to promote it and promoting it, there's no difference. And so it just shows you where the priorities are. If you guys could just check out that article, I mean, the interview in the book from Whitney Webb, Jimmy Dore and Whitney Webb, he interviews her. It's about an hour-long interview where she breaks down the connection between the intelligence state, the deep state, the FBI. I mean, not the FBI. That's involved in intelligence. The mob, the mob, and pedophilia in the U.S. government. It's a very informative. I need to get the books, but it's very informative.
Yeah, send me the link. I'll check it out.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. It's very informative. It's eye opening, and it makes you scratch your head because you wonder why these people don't really ever get any time.
Mhm.
You know, they don't appear to get any time uh, when they commit these types of crimes. I mean, I've seen I've seen what appears to be hidden camera footage of like it looked like a one of those old school like baths, like Turkish baths, like, and it was like little girls. I have to see if I can
Mhm.
find the text to send it to you, but it's like little girls,
Or
and they got like jugs.
the pedophiles that
Yeah,
wear the red shoes, the red leather
and
shoes like that.
well, I don't see any adults. I just see little girls, and they're wearing like they look like ancient Roman slave girl clothes, like what Princess Leia was wearing in the Star Wars. I believe it's the
Hmm.
Empire Strikes Back
Right. Oh shit. Yeah.
when she was with Jabba the Hutt, like stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
similar to that. And
Yeah.
they're
That.
little girls, like they're clearly little girls, like 12, 11, and younger, and they're like filling up this tub. It's a giant room though. It's like giant room full of little girls, and it's like lit with candles. Like if somebody told me, "Oh no, this is a movie about ancient Rome," I would be like, "Oh okay," like it would make total sense for it to be. And it appears to be like a hidden camera situation,
Mm.
but I have no reason to doubt. Like even I've joked, and I want to not draw this out too much longer, but like when the whole Pizzagate thing was going on, I remember being online and like John Legend's wife, right? And they were talking about how she tweeted about pizza all the time and French fries and all this stuff, and how those are all code words. And I remember saying, I looked into the Pizzagate thing, and I remember saying this because I always try to be even keeled about it.
Right.
I don't know if Pizzagate is real or not, but I will say I eat pizza more than most normal people in a week, legitimately. Like I don't as much anymore because I changed my diet up, but I would eat pizza, before I changed. I would eat pizza at least once a week, and usually like 2 or 3 times a week because I would buy frozen pizza, like the home run in frozen pizza.
Mm.
I'd eat those 2 or 3 times a week. I make pizza. And I said, I eat pizza more than a regular person. I know I do. And I never talk about it this much.
Mm.
I never talk about it this much. I don't have that many text messages between my wife and my family about ordering pizza this much. As much as this woman talking about, I got to get 100 pizzas. I just can't wait to eat all this little. Like, what are you freaking talking about? It can't be pizza food because nobody who's talking about food would talk about it in this way. You know
Right.
what I'm so that's my opinion. I don't know if Pizzagate is real or false. But what I will say is it's weird as fuck for all those people to have been talking about food products in the ways that they did. But
Mm. Yep. I remember
I
seeing
just
those screenshots. It's
yeah,
questionable. And it should be one of those things where here at Uncomfy Truths, we're never going to tell you what to think, but just how to think. Everybody should take everything with a critical eye. I'm not 100% sold on the Pizzagate thing as well. That, oh my God, there's like a dungeon in the bottom of this pizzeria. But the pedophile codes, symbols are real. These emails leave room for a lot of reasonable doubt. And you should just really take the time. Everything we say, don't everything we talked about here. This show that we're about to wrap up. Don't take everything at face value. Go do your own research. That's the point. But the problem is people are stuck with laziness, apathy, and they just literally want to be told what to think, whatever is convenient, so they can get back to living their lives. And you're not going to have much of a life to live if you don't learn to wake up and at least question things and do your own research. Don't take what we say for face value or Fox News or CNN. So I think that at its core, and just make your own decision, and then based upon your principles, based on your principles, your values, what are you, whatever your moral compass is, navigate that, cross-check that with an even balance of both perspectives. And that's where your truth should lie. I don't like to say your truth, I like to say your perspective, you know, lies. With what you believe in, and then cross-check that with even balance of both sides of the argument, you know. And then you can find, I guess, your truth or your story, your perspective, you know. So that's all I got to say with that. I'm gonna lay my plane.
yeah. I sent you that video. But
All right.
yeah, man, and that's what it is. And like you said, I hate when people say your truth, because the truth is what it is. You can have a perspective, you can have an opinion, you can't have a
Yeah,
truth.
exactly.
It's just the truth. We're all seeking the same truth. The same truth that says 2 + 2 is 4. The same truth that says, the capital of the United States is Washington, D.C. You know what I'm saying? We just want the truth. What is the truth? I don't want your perspective, because then your perspective tells me that this laptop that shows the president's son smoking crack, and I've heard rumored that he was getting a foot job from the chick who played Mulan in the new Disney movie, has been, by over 50 intelligence workers, been disproven. So Joe Biden basically said, "Who you gonna believe, me or your lying eyes?"
Hmm.
That's your truth.
Wow.
That's what your truth gets you.
Well,
What I see in front of me ain't real. What Joe Biden tells me is real. The guy who we just documented created laws that disproportionately affected the community of people that voted for him overwhelmingly. That's your truth. I don't want your truth. I want the truth. We can get to your perspective. We can get to your opinion. And then after I get your opinion, let's look at the evidence. And let's try to get to the truth at the bottom of it all. Take your opinion, take my opinion. Take not your facts, because they're the facts. We'll take the facts and we'll try to see if we can separate the chaff from the wheat and make bread. That's
well
what we're going
said.
to do.
Between your truth or your opinion or story, the facts lies somewhere in the middle. So don't fall into the gospel, the far right, the far left. The truth is usually somewhere in the middle. So yeah, I think great show, man. We're coming up on 3 hours, but I think it was a very necessary conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I think definitely we could stick around after the recording ends. A couple technical questions I want to run past you. But yeah, our hope is to continue this, maybe get back to twice a month, because once again, the news cycles always come and go so quickly. Next thing there's always something next that breaks out. So hopefully we can maybe get back to our next episode, looking at maybe mid-January, and then hopefully continue it twice a month after that. Just depends on how our schedules line up. So thank you guys for tuning in for episode 10 of Comfy Truths podcast. Conspiracy brother, anything else you'd like to say?
I know, man. I think you pretty much closed us out perfectly.
All right, y'all. Until next time, get uncomfortable with truth.
Peace.
Yeah.